Now today we have the craziest of days. We have no furnace in the house. We have it's really cold in here. The guy's on his way over here, but they can't give you they can't tell you within 8 hours when the guy will be here to repair the furnace. We have this repair agreement that we pay for, and we pay through the nose because we have a 100-year-old furnace. So rather than they tell you it's from 9 to 12, 12 to 1, you know what they tell you? We'll be here today. So I'm sitting here with an electric heater on. I figure while I'm waiting, because I don't want to start working on my plane, I may as well get some work done on Steve Harris's tank. I got the tubes. I'm ready to JB weld them in here. And I wanted to show a little trick, because a lot of people don't know this trick. JB Weld is very heat sensitive when it's mixed. So what I want to do is I want to make the best penetration on these joints, or even if you were repairing a pinhole leak. You want to scuff it, and you can see how I've got this area scuffed with a Dremel tool. I make a tight fit on the tubes, and then I preheat just a little bit. Preheat it. It's got to be like between mayonnaise and peanut butter, right in between. In the world of epoxy, don't laugh. That's the way they describe. Peanut butter and mayonnaise are the two descriptive terms for the viscosity. And when you talk to tech people, if you talk to people at Epon or at Shell Performance, any of the places that deal in high-end epoxy, what they tell you, they give you these viscosities in peanut butter, mayonnaise, and in between. So whatever, if you want to make a peanut butter sandwich, I guess it's fine. Anyway, but this is the trick. Now, anytime you use JB Weld, anytime, get the JB Weld in place where you think it's in place, especially if you're putting a pressure fitting on a pipe, you're repairing a pipe, anything that you're using JB Weld to do a job where structure is important, where it has to get a good bond. Now, this is a tank I'm making for Steve Harris, and I wanted to get ahead on this because I know Steve can fly every day, unlike the poor souls here in the East here, where we're being invaded by helicopters and things pounding the ground, whatever. Anyway, the point is, get this on to where you think it should be, roughly. And get a little more on than you think should be, especially if you're doing a pressure fitting. It doesn't matter if you get a lot more than you need on there. And take a hairdryer on low heat and just warm it just a little bit. You don't want to warm it to where you see a bubble. If you see a bubble, you've overheated it. It's of no benefit. You just make it too liquid. Now the material is really liquid. Let's get a clean Q-tips. And I buy these Q-tips in a dollar store for about 1 million of them for $1. And they really are junk. They're not the Johnson & Johnson ones. Now, once that material gets heat applied to it, what happens is it gets thin, and because it gets thin, it gets a better penetration into the teeth of the when you've roughened up the tubes. Now, carbon tanks by their nature are a whole lot lighter than steel or plastic, but they're delicate in the same way, and it's not a real good analogy, but a Ferrari or a Ducati even. They're very high performance things, but they're delicate. You always need to take into account they need to be treated with kid gloves. You need to do all your shimming off the end caps, not off the middle of the tank like you do on a steel tank. Now, I'm still curious when Joe brings the spit up here, if it's real nose heavy, I'll give him my spare tank, because he had made me so many tanks, I really do need to make him a tank. But I was waiting to get a day that he could come up here, and it's not practical now with the helicopters out in the yard. You can't even walk through the yard. There's so many guys working out there. But they should be done, in my lifetime, I hope. Now, those joints that are very smooth like that. Now, also, I have where these are attached in the back, and I just wanted to put a little bit of heat in there too, because I want these to get a better penetration. Now, I never install the back end cap until I'm done, because then I clean the whole tank out with M600. But this should allow me right now looking at that, I got a real good bond, and it actually, cosmetically, it even looks good. Now I need to stand it on a piece of Teflon for 24 hours while this dries. Now I put this on a piece of clear Teflon. What happens, if any of the material from inside by the vents, where the vents are on this, if any of it drools backward, well, what it does, it makes a nice flat lip instead of drooling out and then I have to grind on it. Since the tank's already been rough cleaned, I don't want to have to do any more grinding on it if I don't have to. Now while I was doing this, and I thought this would be an appropriate thing right now, is I'm making up some spare parts because we're going to have to make at least 2 tanks, a number 1 and a number 2 for this plane and for some of the other people making Chicky planes. So while we're waiting for our furnace man to get here, I guess this is an appropriate choice. And one thing I always try to do is because we're in a small shop environment, try to do things efficiently. While I'm using the tooling and getting this ready, I may as well make, and I've said this before, I may as well make the parts that I know inevitably I'm going to need a month from now when we do the final fitting or some amount of time. But I know most people, I'm not going to be careful here, most people don't really realize, let me get, this is really funny too, they don't realize how much time goes into one of these tanks. Sometimes you look at it and you think, oh gee, it snapped together in a matter of minutes. There's a lot of thought went into this, and Wayne Triven again gets all the credit for that. And of course, most of all, for being a generous person and not hoarding the technology. But a lot of people, when they see the video of how the tanks are made, they're amazed. And our main plug, once that comes out, of course, we're ready to pull parts, pull end caps, pull these. And it's just a question of, in this case, I like to get, it's just an efficiency thing. I want to get a little bit ahead on this because we're a little bit behind schedule where we normally would be. We literally put hundreds of hours into contractor related things. So rather than cry the blues about it, I just try to get up a little bit earlier, knuckle down a little bit more, and in this case, work efficiently that I'm getting extra parts made. And it may seem to some people like it's overkill, but you know, for the people that do need to have the trim feature of getting an extra 1.5 ounces out of the nose, once you build that plane, this little baby can save your life, or it can add performance. If nothing else, it can cut the weight down. And it's always, there's never a time when, if you have the option of having a lighter part instead of a heavier part, that you can always put some clay by the tank if you think that made it better. Anyway, we're on a roll with these lately, and what happens is as I start doing these, if I do 2, 3, 4, 5 at a time, what happens is each one gets a little bit better, and that's what, a little bit faster, a little bit better, a little bit something. When you only do one and I don't do one for a couple of weeks, it's just not the same. It's like, I guess it's not a whole lot different than when a pitcher pitches in a game every in rotation, and he's hurt, and a month later he comes back, and you got to get your rhythm back. But I know there's a reality to that, and there's an efficiency to it, and it's something that allows a small shop like this to survive in these tough economic times. Now, I have to admit one thing. I don't watch a lot of what people would call normal TV, Oprah TV, whatever you want to call it, but I'm totally addicted to. There's a show called How It's Made and how they do things. Now, I'm never going to go in business making B-2 bombers, but I love to see how they make them. And some people that have mentioned to me over the years, one of the things they enjoy about Windy Videos is seeing how some of these things, hey, you might not want a carbon tank, sure. It's not really appropriate for everybody, but it's fun to see how you make one. Just for that, in that fact alone. Let's see what happens when I've got these under so much pressure. A big giant piece of epoxy usually comes out. This is sloppy work, by the way, and it's toxic. This is not stuff that you want to be doing, you know, over and over again. But the result is, and once you get the parts out, and Rich Jacobone is a good example of somebody who, without that tank in his plane, he had no corner. As soon as we put the tank in the plane, and he's never taken it out. He's one of the people that, like the poster boy for using carbon tanks. But again, they're not appropriate for everybody, but I still think everybody enjoys, to a certain amount, seeing how some of these things now, normally I would be doing this out in the garage, except that the guys are working out there. And believe me, there will be no work done in that garage until they're done. These pins are really old too by now. Now, most people are not used to, as modelers, are not used to removing drive pins with a hammer. But for this application, and like I said before, a lot of people do enjoy seeing. It's brutally sloppy work. It's not fun. It's not one of the jobs I look forward to doing. But I get a tremendous satisfaction out of knowing that I have this trim option that not everybody has. And if I ever have a ship that needs nose weight, who cares? But in the meantime, I've got choices that I wouldn't have if I didn't have carbon fiber tanks once these are done. And since I have a day that, in fact, I've already been in and out of the house several times already with, you can hear them out there with the big saws. They're working on a porch, they're working on landscaping the front. I really don't want to get started on a model till things settle down here. Now I thought what I'd start doing here is pulling off some of the back masking, even though our, I guess, an electric man seems to have left us in limbo here. But we have plenty of electric heaters. That's just crazy. Anyway, this will be our first chance to see the color combo next to each other. And I wanted to show this. Now it's cool in here now. I may want to use heat on this, I don't know. That's why I'm starting with the little parts, of course. But the trick, as always with this, that I've found works well for me, is if I can pull the tape back not too fast and straight back. I don't like to pull it straight up. I like to, if I can, pull it straight back. And the minute I see I'm having some kind of a sticky issue, well, now once we pull all the tape up, then we're going to card this with a credit card, get all the edges nice and even, and then try to, well, again, we're waiting around for this repair guy. And I'm not sure these guys ever show up. See, sometimes, at least in our part of the country, they say they're coming, and they tell you between 8 and 4. And they don't show up, and it's 10 after 4, and they say, oh, well, we'll get to you tomorrow. Well, that means tomorrow you got to wait the whole day, too. So basically, that looks like some nice tape edges. I like the color combo very much. And what's more important, Karen loves these colors. Now, I got to admit, I'm getting spoiled having a 30-cup coffee maker in my shop here. Look at this. This is just so convenient. I'm not sure if I ever get wealthy, I can afford to have a real coffee maker in my shop. Just walk over there and get a cup of Javalia anytime I want. I'm not sure. That actually is the contractor's coffee, and it's time to feed the contractors. I feel like I have a pet or something. It's really disrespectful, but. And then I got to start pulling tape. It's time. We're not going to wait for this gas man anymore. He's letting us down today. They always let you down. Now what I do, I take each part, and I want to be real careful that I don't have any bad spots, any blemishes, one by one as I line these up for the next step. Every one of these parts I've gone over many times to make sure there's no gouges in the silver. On the ones that have tape on them, now if there's the slightest hint that we're having an issue with paint pull-up, we'll be heating everything. It's pulling right up nicely. But there's a couple of tricks. Number one, you never want to go like you're opening a box of cookies. That's not a good idea. You want to always go straight back. You don't want to go on an angle or an edge. That minimizes what it does. It cuts the edge. The tape physically cuts the edge, and it makes it just that much easier to pull that off. Now what happened in our little area here, we would touch that up. Inside the little gear block, it pulled up some of the loose paint, but not where we're going to see it. So I can get in there with a brush and touch that up anytime. But these are really starting to look nice. I really do like that color combo too. And this is one of the places that a little patience goes a long way, because I'm excited to see this all in one piece, of course, and not in one piece, but all the parts laying there. And I'm excited to see the colors more than anything else. But nothing beats just being patient, especially when we go around the lettering around that area too. These areas, I think, yeah, we don't have a joint here. I'm going to have to get right in at the joint. And the whole idea, of course, is just to minimize any amount of touch-ups that we have to do here. In fact, maybe, oh yeah, I see there's a joint right here. I forget where I put the joints. I'm glad I kept this. It's amazing. Everything, when you get old, everything, you can't see things, you can't hear things. Amazing. Now in this case, I'm trying to be very careful and just pick this up ever so slightly and without chipping the paint, but I'm just not sure I'm getting it. I don't want to take a chance. I may as well just give up and slit the tape back here and stop fooling around. Sometimes, and I'm prone to do it, you just get too cute. And it really, when I do the touch-ups on this, I really should make this point. When I do the touch-ups, I really always manage to bury any little errors, even big errors. But it just saves the fact of doing it, saves the time of doing it. And if I had better eyes, I could see this a little bit better. Boy, it would be very nice. Yeah, it's coming up real nice. I'm just being a crybaby. We got a tiny bit of overspray here where the tape wasn't sitting down. I've got some Gorhams on a Q-tip before I even do the carding, which the edges look pretty good here. I'm better not get too carried away. It's really the wing that's the biggie. Yeah, it's coming right off. It's just overspray. The thing you never want to do with overspray is sand it with sandpaper. Then it leaves sanding scratches and you find spots where it doesn't match. Right here, these little spots. Gorham's is the tip. Probably the more I look at these colors, these are really going to pop in the sunlight. There's our next victim. Now, in an all-perfect world, you'd be able to take the tape off backwards, exactly reverse of, you know, of the way it went on, so that you don't try to pull one up that you don't try to pull from the bottom up. But I try to take the back masking and just look at it and see which tape is on top and pull that one up first. In this case, see, I left an extra piece of tape on here so that I'd know this was the top, and then this unfolds this way. It just puts less strain. The other thing you never want to do is squeeze. You don't want to get where you're squeezing where the tinfoil is. Now, it's even worse if you use heavy-duty tinfoil. Heavy-duty tinfoil tends to put, and I used some on this because I didn't have any extra. What happens is it tends to put, if you squeeze it a little dense, or if you're painting white, it'll leave little gray spots on it. Well, in our case, having these little things like this, where I can tell just by looking at the tape which side is the top, it just makes doing it and pulling it back off. And it's always a problem on the corners. That's where the two tapes stick together and you're trying to pull it and you pull it, and that's sometimes where you do damage. So to avoid that, what I try to do, and it's not a big deal, but I'd always try to cut the tape in the middle if possible and back it up. Back toward the corners. Never pull from the corners in unless you have to, for whatever reason. It puts less of a strain on the part. If I work from the middle out, and you can damage, there's no doubt about it, you can damage delicate woodwork and things like that if you're not aware of, or if you're trying to struggle, especially around a wingtip, or especially in our case, these things are razor edges out at the bottom. We wanted that as part of our look. Spoke to Richard Oliver, and I should have decals tomorrow or the next day, the Chicky decals that we're going to use. Anyway, this is coming off. I don't even think it's going to need the heat at all. I try to be real careful around the edges because I always have trouble on the hinge lines and right around these edges when I'm pulling the tape back. And I, like anybody else, I tend to get impatient. And, well, because I'm really looking forward to seeing this up to this point, what this paint job is going to look like. I've had a vision in my mind for a lot of hours. And I'm really looking forward to seeing it. And it looks like we're having no issue at all with tape pull-up, which is not only a good thing, it's an incredibly good thing. And those edges look like they're just going to be real nice. And it's not funny when I look back and I think how many times I'd get to this point. Now, what would happen in the past is there'd be a couple of nice days, spring days would come by, and I'd say, oh, I got to get this done, or I'd run down, rip off the tinfoil, and then all little dents where I was squeezing it, and I'd have little paint edges coming up. So far, this is coming up really nice. Now, even if I've got to touch up a couple little spots, it'll give me a chance to show touching them up. And the nice thing about doing black, anything that's not straight on that, I can just hit with an ink pen. If there's a little issue somewhere, and of course there's going to be, by the time this is done, there'll be issues. There'll be something, but that paint really did come out pretty nice. And again, it's the choice of colors that Bob Brookins and I went back and forth on these, and I had all those Brodak yellows, and I just wanted something that when you put it down in, you know, in a row of planes, there was going to be nobody else exactly the same. Well, or it's not like you're getting paid for that, but I think those colors are going to just pop in the sky. Really nice. You know, they got those hammering going on out there and bulldozers and everything. We're going to get the tape pulled up, though. I'm not waiting for this gas guy anymore. I'll live without heat. Now, these are always ones where I always have a little bit of an issue and I don't know why, by the hinge lines or in the back. And if I do, simple thing is just to get a touch-up. That's why we have a little touch-up brush. Now, what I'll do when I get to the final part is get 3 little jars or 3 little caps. One yellow, one white, one black. And when I'm carding things, if I see any spots, just dot it in. I can see I got a little bit of overspray in here. Gorham's will take that right off. Q-tip and Gorham's. So as I thought might happen, right in the front of the hinge line, it's going to need a touch-up. In fact, I see this little white flap of paint coming up here. May as well get rid of it because we're going to touch that up. And that's not a big deal. But what I'd like to do is, before I do the carding, while I'm doing all the carding on this, I'll be going through with the touch-up paint and pick out any little spots. And it's that same thing, just like sanding the silver. Every step of the way, I'm trying to touch it up, touch it up, touch it up, so that when we get to the end, the clear, I don't have touch-ups, or I've minimized how many touch-ups I have. Now, ironically enough, both of them, right on the beginning, right on the hinge line, they're going to need a drop of white. But the yellow and the black, solid as a rock. Oh, another thing I can tell, it's going to be real good on this plane. Because of the amount, black of course doesn't make a big paint buildup. And this yellow covered way better than I thought it would. Especially at the end with the 1-to-1 on that second coat. So there's not much of a paint edge there. There's nothing like on some colors that I can remember, you know, certain paint jobs where that edge was, holy mackerel, 1/16 of an inch high. And you think, how much clear is that going to take to bury it? We're definitely going to be able to save some clear, because this is only going to require 1 or 2 coats over this and over any ink work before we put on the final clear. And we have very thin paint edges. These are very, very thin. So we probably put on a little bit more yellow than I thought we needed to, but I really wanted it to pop. But I think we're going to make up for it in the fact that we're not going to have to bury a lot of big, thick, gawky paint edges. Now this one is exactly the same. So I don't know what the issue is here. Maybe because I'm sanding and there's always a dry spot right at the tip. But I don't know if on the next ship we build I should put extra base there or whatever. But it's right here, and pretty much all of them are the same. We didn't have any that don't need a touch-up yet. But that's a hell of a touch-up. And actually, even if you didn't touch it up, you wouldn't even see it, to be honest. It wouldn't even matter. And I've asked for Karen's input on this again, and she just loves the color. And boy, that's so important to me, because she's been very encouraging during this project while we were doing the porch and this landscaping, having her support and her cups of coffee now and then. They've really made the job go a lot nicer for me. And we've had some rough days along the way. It's very cloudy out there today, but it'll be real nice to see what this is going to look like in the sunlight too. This single piece, this was the most difficult piece to get right, and I'm hoping when we pull this off, because of so many repairs on this piece, I don't have any issues with the paint edges. That's given me a little concern. I've kind of been avoiding doing this until now. Well, Wendy, stop being a baby, as Karen would say. Just tough it out, Chicky. Now this, I know, on a trailing edge can be, that's where it's going to be, where the hinge line is. If this is going to be a problem, it's going to be right on that hinge line. And the reason I show this is because I know a lot of people that are doing this, they see that happen and they think, oh, I'm the only one in the world that ever happened to. Well, not true. It happens to, I think it happens to most people. And maybe it does happen to everybody. I don't know. Anyway, I'm excited about seeing this all in one piece very soon. Not in one piece. I keep saying one piece, but it's because I'm excited. And because I'm freezing. No heat in the house will do that to you. That is another possibility I wanted to mention. If you know, for instance, these trailing edges are on every ship you build, or the leading edge of the flaps, they're pulling up on you, there's a way you can just take the green tape and stick it to the table once, which I didn't want to do because I wanted those razor crisp edges, which it seems like I've got. And I'm not sure if I do, but so far so good. Now that tape popped, so that tells me it's really sticking down, maybe more than it has to. Tape is such a variable thing. And I've even bought, I used to buy the tape at a body shop supply place, because I thought they had a great turnover. But even there, sometimes I'd get a roll that was just way stickier than all the rest. Probably because it was sitting on a shelf or sitting in the winter or sitting in Minnesota out on some body shop. Anyway, amazingly enough, that came off without a hitch. And that was my biggest concern, because this is one part, we've done more repairs on this part than on everything else put together. Now this is the part we have to really be very, very careful with. The two things. I didn't want to get any dents in the canopy area, because this is going to be candy apple, maybe with a hint of pearl, and I didn't want this to be, that actually is one of the next things we have to do, is spray the canopy. But before I even think about doing that, all of this tape, and I've got it bent in, and I've got it bent in here to try to make this as clean as possible. And there's no doubt about it, that's going to be a little more difficult than, well, than everything else. But I'm going to pick away at this very, very carefully, just like all the other parts. Oh boy, I want to be ultra, ultra careful with this. I don't want to get too cute. Why do I keep using that, you cute? Because Karen always says, Wendy, you're trying to be too cute. And she's probably right. Now one thing is for sure on this job, the blue tape just came up beautifully. The blue tape has been up to this point perfect. The green tape, semi-perfect. So, and it's only around those edges, which I'm not sure I have a cure for yet, but certainly something we're going to be working on in the future in our quest for perfection. Painting perfection. Ooh, look at that. That is, as it comes apart, wow. And how that scoop just laid right in there in black. This is where I want to really be careful I don't pull up any of the tape off of this scoop area, off of this cowl area. Now we got one spot on this, right by the scoop, that has a little bit of overspray, but again, it's not really a big deal. It comes right off with Gorham's. The one thing is never sand it. Just take it off. Gorham's or rubbing compound, whichever is your polisher of choice. And the idea of Gorham's is it doesn't leave any wax on there either. Now, I've been really, really trying to be very careful about all of these little edges. Just, again, the only thing is to minimize the amount of touch-ups that we may or may not have to do. But the beautiful part of black, boy, black is the wonderful thing is when you got to touch it up. Or another thing that you can do with black, which we did on a Tiger Cat, if you get a scratch in it just before appearance judging, you can just take a Sharpie marker and minimize the impact of the scratch, or somebody puts their fingernail in it. The thing with the equipment, you know, I shouldn't say the wild hogs, I should say our friends in flying, they're a little rough on equipment. They have belt buckles and jewelry, and you know, they're all very wealthy. They've got to show me that they've got rings and Ferrari watches and who knows what. They're like the low riders of New Jersey. Anyway, this is the part I really wanted to see. I really do like the way that's going to look when a plane's in the overhead aider, and I'm going to basically make everything in here black so that this will be a black orange. As it changes, you'll see the same flip of black to yellow. Right there is our little spot that we got a little, I got to get a Q-tip out and take care of that. What's funny with how many things you take for granted in life, and a furnace is certainly one of them. And you know what the problem is? We really should buy a new furnace. We've had this thing worked on a couple of times already, and they keep telling me you can't even get parts for it anymore. And then they get it to work for another year, and I think, oh, I'll get one more year out of it. Well, you know what? I think as soon as the summer gets here, we're going to have to consider getting a more reliable unit, because I really don't like running electric heaters in the house. I know they're a fire hazard. And I think that when that's all back, the back masking is off on the canopy and everything, we're going to have the physical impact that we wanted of the bold striping, and that white edge is just going to set it off even better. And the last thing is to very carefully pull this off. The reason is I don't want any little dents from the tin foil. It's very easy to get those dents in there, because that will reflect. Every little dent in there is going to reflect. So, you know, as I'm pulling up, see these little, this is from the, and they'll come off with Gorhams, of course. Want to get those off. That's from the tin foil squeezing down. A little right there, there's a little spot. That stuff will come right off with Gorhams. This side didn't have any. We got a few little dots here. Kind of like the way that cockpit came out. I love the way the black stripe. I think in flight, that's really going to be, give it that accent. I think it'll make a good maneuver look even better than it is. Gone. Now this side here, same thing. Takes it right off. But nothing on, of course, don't put anything but wax on it. I'll clean that again with M600 just in case I got some fingerprints on it. You know, I can see one problem I'm going to have. See how the white didn't go back far enough? That's going to be a little bit of a problem. Because this stripe here, this white stripe, is going to get silver when it's up here. I'm going to have to back mask the stripe and just brush it in. Not a big deal, but I see ahead of time that's going to be one of the issues. The edges all look fine. And this won't be a problem here at all, this extra little, the silver. See what I should have done. I did it on this side. I got the white back far enough. I didn't know how far back. And I'm surprised slipped right by me. But touching it up, when we get to the point of taking this tape off to touch it up, that'll be a no-brainer. Now, do the same thing down here. Get rid of this little overspray down here. Same thing. And that'll be one more part to put over in our done for the next step until we're ready for the next step. Oh, I remember one of the candy apple planes that I had some overspray onto the red. And for whatever I was thinking, I took some 1200 sandpaper and tried to clean it out, and everything looked great. And then I went to spray the plane with clear, and what happened was, of course, the scratches just opened up like the River Jordan, and the red had to be redone right from the silver up. And that looks like we've got most of that overspray off of there. But I'd always rather play it safe here with a little Gorhams. Well, the last thing, you saved, of course, the wing for last. Now, I can always see on the letters themselves, I can see which tape is up on the top, so it makes it a little bit easier. And this is just going to be an hour or so of delicately and very carefully pulling it back.
No, public service?
Public service, great. Boy, it is such a good feeling to have heat back in the house. Oh, boy, you never appreciate something like a furnace. Anyway, we had a nice visit with the gas repair guy. He was kind of funny. Anyway, back to work. So much nicer now that we have some heat in the house. I'm going to get the rest of this masking tape off. And nothing is going to stop us. Now, based on what this gas man advised us, it's probably not going to be long before we're going to need the another investment in a furnace. But if we can get the rest of this season out of it while we're doing this outdoor work, and it actually started snowing out there. The poor guys are out there working in between snow and rain, somewhere in between. It's murder. But it shows you how unpredictable everything is. There's just no part of the tribute plane. Every minute of it has been an unpredictable event. Now I'm being very careful, especially up by the fuselage, not to pull those corners off. One by one, getting the letters off. Now before I take off the edges of the letters, I still have to do that. I wanted to see, this is the thing I wanted. As the model's flying directly at you, I did not want to see any accent on the leading edge. And yet when it flies away from you, it almost looks like a checkerboard. It'll be very bright, so it'll be like a little bit of an optical illusion, I think. I guess we'll find out as soon as we get some flights on tape. And again, if I'm wrong, you know what? I can just put a piece of yellow or white tape or something down the leading edge if that doesn't appeal. And I got plenty of people that I really trust their opinion. Joe Adamusco's the #1 aesthetic person on my staff of Spitfire owners here. So this is the last of the Mohegans. If this tape comes up without any real issues, then I will count that those little touch-ups that we have, they're extremely minor. But I just got to keep my patience here and not get impatient and want to just rip this off. We'll leave rip-offs to the government. And you can pretty much see here just how accented everything is. That white stripe makes such a difference, and what I wanted to do is put two letters together, one that has the white stripe and one that doesn't, just to show how a dramatic difference there is when you have the white stripe on everything. Now these two colors, just like the Testarossa colors and the Novanta colors, I think without the white stripe they'd be, well, not as dramatic in their presentation. And it's warmed up about 10 degrees since we have heat again instead of electric. They really are. I really am not happy with electric heat because I know they're prone to catch fire and overheat, and even though we have modern electric in this house, and what was snow earlier has turned to rain, which I don't know if that helps or hurts the guys outside. This looks like it's a little bit of a problem right here. Now, Just left some tape residue down there. A little M600 will get rid of that. But see the difference between here? Let me just put it on a letter with a white outline, no white outline. Look at the difference. It's dramatic. Even the stripe here, if you look at the stripe without the white stripe and with the white stripe, to me it's like the final touch, having that white stripe there. And in the past, when I've left the stripe silver, not even close. So I was unhappy with that. I didn't want to cheat myself on that either. And I know I'm going to have to respray that stripe or touch it up with a brush around the back of the canopy. I can't believe I did that, but you know what? Shame on me. I like that white stripe. Now pretty much the rest of this is going to be pretty redundant. We got a couple hours of, well, maybe a little more even tonight. Just pulling the rest of this off. We're waiting to see, number one, if, and we don't know if it's rain is going to turn to snow, snow to rain. Everything's an adventure. Total adventure. Well, we pretty much got all the tape off. It really was no problem at all. The little few pieces we have to repair and touch up, we normally have that amount. There's no more or no less than on any other plane. But basically none of the yellow and none of the black and none of the white needs a major touch-up. And I think that's a kind of a miracle. Of course, what we're going to try to do tomorrow is spray the canopy, do the airbrushing on that, make some other decisions as to what else, how we want to handle certain other things. But we want to look at this overnight. That's always a critical thing, to look at it on a fresh cup of coffee. And I remember George saying he'd look at a painting when he came down. I don't think this is any different than an artist painting a painting. He'd come down in the morning and he'd look at his whatever he was doing and he'd say, gee, I like it a lot better than I did last night, or he hated it. In this case, I'm not sure, because these colors you have to see in real life. They are really a good, I think this is an excellent match. And Karen really likes it, and well, from this point on, it's only going to get better when we put clear on it. But for right now, that ends our little shop session. And we actually have heat in the house. It's a miracle. We have heat. We got to go do some email. I wanted to get everything up off the floor before we end the night here. We got another problem, that it's snowing. Snow is turning to rain, rain's turning to snow. We had no idea this was going to happen, and our contractor friends are working right through it. It's amazing. They got everything covered up with plastic out there. We got to bring the coffee maker in, among other things. I'm really liking it. See, I like to look at it from a lot of different angles, from a lot of different positions. I just don't like to just look at it once and then be done with it. And I think one of the things I'm really liking, the more I see it, is the long canopy. Maybe we can start a new trend in stunt. Long pointy canopies. It was pretty disgusting. The snow has turned to rain. It was snow, rain, snow, rain, snow, rain. They've got everything covered up with plastic. But it's a mess out here. Man. Oh man, it is messy. What do you think, these guys stop working? Forget it. Pouring rain means nothing. Means nothing. Oh, they are brutal. These guys are brutal, I'll tell you. I am impressed. And they're working on leveling out the driveway. And boy, yeah, I guess that coffee went down good. Let me go see if they want another cup. Quick story, very quick story, you'll die laughing. Richard Oliver gets up early this morning, gets his stuff all set to go, walks out to his flying field, and there's a bunch of cows sleeping in his flying field. And he tried to get them to move, but I guess he just wasn't a real cowboy, would know how to kick them or bite them or whatever, make them move. So he had to get on his tractor and start it up, and whatever you do on a tractor, blow the horn. And I can picture, he said, I wasted a half hour of good air chasing the cows around my field. Oh my God, Rich, that is so pure. That's priceless. You can't make that stuff up. Cows on the flying field. That is really great. So you would think the birds would get up even earlier than the contractors. The contractor's been coming earlier. Today it's warm out there, actually. After a day of who knows what, yesterday's snow, rain. It warmed up a little, and the birds said, well, we better hurry up and eat before the contractors get here with their mean machines. And they're right. Now, I always like to look at a paint color like this, something that's radically different than what I have done in the past. See, when I did the two Ferrari planes, I knew I liked the colors. So this, I wasn't sure if I was going to like it, love it, hate it, or whatever. It's kind of like a, you know, something you have to have that coffee kick in, and then I make a decision. Now, I know the red planes showed up very well and visually, and as I see the two of them side by side now, I think the yellow is going to really be spectacular. And I wasn't sure again. Wasn't positive last night. You know, as we had no heat in the house. Really, it's nice waking up to some heat in the house here. But I think as I look, I'm looking for contrast. And as I see the contrast, say, from the Spitfire, the white outline is what makes this whole thing, to me, work way better than if it didn't have the white outline. So today there's two really simple jobs. I made up a new list of what I wanted to do. I want to card off all the edges. I want to do the fuselage first, because then I can airbrush in the canopy. It's relatively, everything is relatively warm, and I'll be no problem painting out there today, or if I have to paint in the back room, I'll see where they're working. But I really do like the color. Now, here's the big thing. I thought if I didn't like this color, if it looked a little bit too bland, then what I thought one of the things I would consider doing, I was going to take the orange color and just fog all around the edges. And that's, you know, I don't want to turn this into a chopper too. There's a place in the world for choppers, and there's a place in the world for, I don't know, Ferraris, I guess. And I think this actually even has a little bit of the look of that I was looking for of the Ferrari planes, and yet it looks different enough with that big canopy. When that canopy is painted in, I think, and then the decals have already left Texas. And Richard Oliver, that was funny last night, he tells me there's cows on his flying field. I don't know how you could make that up, even if it was. You go out there, all right, Betsy, get off. Betsy, you're on my stooge. Betsy, get off here. Hard to believe. Anyway, we're real happy. The one thing came out of this, and there's been times in my life when I've come down the next morning and looked at something that I thought was real cool the night before and said, oh man, I hope nobody see, get that out of there, paint that over. Now, the choices would have been, if this color I was not happy with, again, my thought was I was going to try to airbrush in some orange or do something or add a stripe along here, and I'm thinking, nah, I want this to be simple. I want it to be like a Ferrari Ducati, where it's rough razor edges, and I think all of that planning, I think I really have created something, and of course time will tell, that like the Novanta, like the Testarossa, it's dramatic. The color separation is dramatic, and yet it's simple, and it jumps out at you that it's a little bit different than everything else, than all the guys that are going for the stars and 12 different color stripes. I like this right now. Whenever I've come down in the morning after a tape pull like this and looked at it, I like this. This is by far the best one. That the day after I've looked at it, I really like this a lot. And I had Karen look at it real quick, and she just said, don't touch a thing. And I don't want to busy it up with too many decals or too many ink lines. I want it to really have that, I don't know if it's a look that I like, this kind of simple, monotone. When you stand in front of the black, the wing disappears, and then as it goes by, it turns where it's looking like black and yellow, and then the flaps are yellow. So I think when it's all put together, I think we're really going to be happy with this, but we got to get busy carding it off. Carding it off is the next step. And I updated my list here, card off everything. Now there's a lot of little tips to carding off the paint. One of them is not to do it the day after you paint. Let it sit an extra day. If possible, let it sit 2 days. because these edges get more and more brittle and then they're easier to shave off. Number two, don't even think about taking sandpaper and sanding them. That, you'll kill it. I've tried razor blades, I've tried fingernails, I've tried a million different things, and the best thing is an ordinary, especially if you have a brand new one or a relatively new one, a credit card. And what I do is, when I have a brand new credit card, I save it for carding off. That little edge of plastic, it'll usually get you through one paint job, but even if you don't, you can turn it, you get four corners. The plastic is hard enough to break the point, but that edge, and not so sharp that it's going to tear up paint or leave scratches. It's the best of all worlds. And of course, I'll always start on the rules of engagement. I'll always start on the bottom, start on smaller parts. But in this case, I'll do the little parts first, but then I want to do the fuselage before I do the wing. The wing will be several hours or so I want to get some of this, and it's going to take several coats to fog in that canopy. So I've kind of set up a little thing. It may change. I'm sure the phone will be ringing off the hook today because it's a nice day, and I'm sure Jacobone and Detavio are going to go out flying today. They're dying to go flying. I just can't break away here. Now, I thought I'd start off the day, and it's a very strange day out there. It's already 40 degrees, and it's supposed to go to 50. Can you imagine 50 here in the middle of February? And I already got a call from Rich. They all want to go up the field flying. I don't blame them. After one day it's snowing and raining, the next day it goes up, so it's just totally crazy out there. But what I wanted to do this morning is finish Steve Harris's tank. I know he's very excited about the possibility of getting this done, and I really never like to hold anybody up. Also trying to coordinate this day with Joe Adamusco that we want to get together and do a bench trimming, and I might have to make him a tank too, depending on how nose heavy that is. But the even better option is he has the choice of putting a lighter spinner on. He doesn't have the lightweight spinner that I have already, so we can even put the spinner from my plane on his, just to, if he wants to get a test day in. And what happens with this weather around here, it'll be freezing, freezing, freezing. All of a sudden it's a flying day. And I can understand why Rich and John want to get out to the field, you know. I'm straining at the bit myself, but unfortunately there's a reality to it. We made this commitment to get our backyard done, and we made the commitment to get the porch done this year, and you know, I really can't complain because it's gone off, I wouldn't say uneventfully, but relatively uneventfully. Relative is the word we've been using a lot of lately. Now, another thing I wanted to mention about using JB Weld, whenever you do any JB Weld parts, unlike glue, or normally the way we would do something is put glue on one side and attach the part. It's always good, in this case we're gluing on the final end cap on the back of Steve's tank. It's always better to glue both sides, hit it with a little bit of heat, and that drops the viscosity, lets it get a better penetration. And it's one of the tricks when people have trouble that they can't figure out how to get JB Weld to do the job, or if you have failures. If JB Weld fails in service, sometimes that's the reason. A little bit of heat. Wanted to show this once. Now originally when we were making these tanks, we were using different materials. We were mixing our own Epon and Cabasil, and actually Fernando in Brazil has gotten all the information, and he has the DVD on how to make tanks. I'm assuming he's going to try to make them. He's got, all you need is a machinist to make you the tooling, and or you can improvise if you can come up with some better way yourself. There's always room for improvement. But anyway, I'm going to get this done, and then we're going to start carding off those small parts. I'm trying to make a little priority list in the back of my mind. Now when this is such a tight fit now because of the way these parts snap together. And I didn't want to force it, but I want it to be a tight, it's actually a snap, there it is, a snap fit. Now the last step on this is to clean up all the edges of the JB Weld. And we're ready to start carding. I've been saving some Barnes & Noble gift cards that I haven't used yet. I got for Christmas. So I want to wear out the edges before I cash them in. But I guess I guess you could always just use any credit card. It wouldn't really matter. Haven't found any like your preferred brand or anything. But that edge does last. Yeah, if it doesn't last, you need 2 credit cards, depending on how much trim you have on the plane. Just enough heat to lower that viscosity and get a nice joint. Definitely don't want to ever see a bubble. And what we'll be able to do now is, in the next couple days, we'll of course pressure check this, do the cleaning, the final cleaning, and send it off to Steve. I'm sure he's waiting. And this will give him a lot more trim options on his new plane. And then of course we have to, the final decision is the tank we need to make for Joe is a very special size and shape, if we have to make one. But we won't know that until Joe gets we get a trim day up here. And we let it sit in this position, so if there's any movement of the JB Weld, it runs toward the back of the tank, sealing it even better. But usually there's no problem with those joints. When they're done right, and that little bit of heat, they really do. Using JB Weld properly really adds a nice dimension to your construction stuff. I hope these little tips have helped. Let's get carding. Now I'm just looking at, I took out some pictures of some of my other yellow planes. The Sidewinder was one of them. The Griffin, the Sidewinder. I had one yellow Cardinal. Well, one yellow and purple. But I just look at this yellow and the yellow that's on that. I'm not sure you even see it on the video until you take it out in the sun. But that Mercedes-Benz yellow has a lot more pop to it. So if you're considering painting something yellow, Bob Brookins is your man. Give him a call. I'm sure when you see this in real life at Brodax or at the Nats, this will really be an impressive color. I love this color. I had no idea I was going to like this color as much as I do. Now, if you look at these edges really up close, as the tape pulls up, that's exactly what you have. That's very typical. Now, what I found is if you go directly against this, you don't accomplish much. If you go directly this way, you accomplish less. If you've ever grouted tile, you know the way you get it to work the most efficiently is on a 45-degree angle. And you can't really put a lot of pressure. You've got to let like using a razor blade, let the edge of the card do the work. Now that'll definitely take care of this edge. You can even feel it. Now I've got to work the other way, or else I'm not going to get this edge. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to go set up my 3 little touch-up for these 3 colors. I'm going to set them up because as I go through piece by piece by piece, I want to see, oh, it's a little spot there, a little there. I want to do like a little mini touch-up along the way. Now at some point in time you can still feel this, but it's nowhere near as bad as it was. Also, if you find out, and this is mostly on white it's going to happen, that the tinfoil has left a little gray area, you just go get just 1 drop of M600 on a paper towel or a Q-tip and take it right off. And in the worst case scenario, a little bit of Gorham's. And I'm embarrassed to admit how many times I've gotten frustrated with this and just taken a little piece of sandpaper, and what happens, the thinner and the clear, just this line will start to move or something. What has to happen after this is I need to go over all the parts just over that ditch with clear to seal it up. Now just what's a good idea too is, since my hands may still be dirty from the day before, you never know, is just to clean that up and look at each part individually if it needs any little touch-ups. And if it does, this is a great time to do them. Now, right now, you almost, well, you can feel it, but it's way less pronounced than it was before. And notice I'm always doing these little parts first, just in case I come up to some kind of a problem with the card, or I want to look real careful, make sure I'm not scratching anything. Because we are really getting down to the nitty-gritty here on these parts. And a scratch now means a lot of touch-up work. And what happens is just a little touch. You can see the stuff actually coming off. Now if you were to leave this step out, you're going to wind up having to put a lot more clear on a plane. It's going to add unnecessary weight. And when you're done and you rub your hand over this, you're going to feel it. Well, the idea is when I'm done with this and it's buffed, if I close my eyes, I can't tell where the trim is. And that's my own personal test for what I like to have in a finish. Now again, I'm looking at each piece. Does it need a touch-up? This one doesn't, but the other one does, has a little spot. But I'm going to get my little jars. As soon as I say I need one touch-up, I'll go get the 3 little jars ready and leave them ready to go. Because what happens if you let this all go to the very end, you just make it just makes it more difficult. You know, touching things up is like an ongoing thing. And each time I'm wiping it down with M600, I can see that I'm picking up some dust. Where this is picking up from is right where the edge is raw. Now as I'm cleaning this part, I've already cut the edge down. I can see I'm missing the little white and yellow stripe, so this is a time to get my touch-up brushes. And if that's the only place the tape pulled up, that actually is the biggest, and most people wouldn't even, not most, nobody's going to see that, but I'll see it. Now for the whole rest of this, and I mean right up through the end of the clear, because there'll be spots where I sand through, buff through, where it needs touch-up, I'll have my 3 jars, 3 separate brushes. So the idea here is I won't be tempted to go, oh, that nobody will see that little spot. Oh, nobody will see that. I just turn around from the bench, touch it up, put it back up on the rack. And as Chicky is so famous for saying, don't be a baby, Chicky, touch it up. And if you do this on an ongoing basis, as you get to the end of the project, it becomes a lot easier and a lot more fun. Now, a little thing like in where the gear wire is, I'm sure nobody's going to really see that, but you know what? It's only going to take me a second to do this. And part of the thing is I have the brushes sitting there, so I'm not tempted to get lazy. Now once that dries and that stripe goes through, then I'll just do the yellow. But I want one color at a time to dry. But even little things like this, every little detail, to me it all matters. Some people it doesn't matter. They're more concerned with, you know, what score they got at some contest. But this is what really makes me pursue this, and with a passion that I think about this day and night. Now I always have these issues around the hinge line. This one, the stripe doesn't go through perfect. Well, we'll touch that up. And as I say that, one little chunk of paint. And I have really, over the years, tried a lot of different ways to do this step. And for me, and under the shop conditions I have, and under the quality that I want, now, you know, needless to say, if you're not looking for this level of quality and you just want to get to the flying field, well, this is probably a little overkill. And at the same time I'm doing this, I'm being careful to look for any spot right there that needs a little touch-up. And you would think at some point this gets pretty fanatical. Well, it does. See right here, the white is... But when it's all done, The human eye is a funny thing, and I remember this from, I was watching a show, and they were making a scale model of a city. And the guy that was showing how he made the model was saying, yeah, we have to put the fire hydrants in, and we have to put the cracks in the sidewalk and everything, even though you won't see it. You will not see that when the camera pans by. But if it's not there, as the camera pans by, your eye will know something's wrong. Well, that's the idea with little mistakes. Sometimes you don't see a little mistake, you don't look at it up close, but your eye sees it, and it subconsciously says, you know, that something's wrong there. I can take another look at that. And yet if your eye looks at it and it says, whoa, it knows right away those lines are straight, especially if we had this line going down a fuselage and it was cocked up. There's a million little time bombs in laying out or designing a paint job. And a paint job can either accent what you're doing, the same way if you're, Karen tells me all the time, you know, some of her lady friends, they don't dress appropriately, as well as me, of course. She says, you know, so-and-so, she should be not wearing those striped dresses with the stripes going sideways, or somebody shouldn't be wearing a red dress, or she's very critical of that. And the problem is, even if you're not critical of it, your eye knows it's there. Your eye knows something is wrong. Now we got a couple little touch-ups here, but as I'm going through the parts, I want to do all the little parts before I get to do the fuselage. And then when I do the fuselage, I should have this that I can be watching TV while I'm doing it. Now I found in years gone by that one of the things, if I didn't have the jars open, even if I had to just take the lid off the jar, what would happen? I'd get lazy. And I don't think I'm that different than most people, that you're always looking for a reason not to do it, when in reality we should be looking for a reason to do it. And even these little stripes, now I know the odds that somebody's going to look at the plane and see this stripe has, in the hinge line, has a little divot. I know what the reality is, but you know what? I'll see it. And I always find that by trying to make myself happy with something, the ultimate product is better. And if you're not doing this to make it as good as you can, stunt is kind of a game where you're in or you're out. There's no in between. You really can't fly competitive control line stunt and have do it part-time. You're in or you're out. And there's no in between. You wish there was an in between, but unfortunately I haven't been able to find it. But the reality of it, let's see, we need black. The reality of it is when the passion bites you and you really start seeing results, and I'm sure Rich Walbridge, just for an example, is one of the people that's seen some real results, picked up some good tips off the video. It really can make a difference in how much your level of appreciation is of modeling. And I know before this project is over, I'll be making myself crazy more than once, but you know what, I don't care. Because in the end, there's always something you have to remember. In the very end, when the model's done and you bring it out to the flying field and it's all buffed out, that is something special that only a few people in the world, in all of history of man, there's only a few people know the joy of creating something like that and putting it out there where other people that are interested in it can really appreciate the effort that goes into these little things that we do. Now I know on the flaps and elevators, see that where it doesn't line up just right, and believe me, you'll never see that, but back here I've got a little bit, it looks like the joint bled some clear. I can just touch that up with white as I go along. And the good news is you can pick the level of, again, how fanatical you want to be about this, if it's important to you, and if it's not important, nobody's going to hate you for it, that's for sure. But for the people that really do want to have it all, in terms of putting that plane down in front of people and they just go, whoa. And that just takes effort. think that's just where a tape joint bled some clear, but we can make that disappear. And when the final clear gets buffed over that, that'll disappear. That's nice how the trailing edge stripe lined up. I've seen so many planes, even high quality planes, where in the end, that stripe doesn't join at the, it's so a little thing that bothers me. There's another spot. This is where we had the problem up here, but we're going to take care of that right now. Now once the clear is on this, and it's buffed, the fact that it's done with a brush almost always fades right away. Now sometimes when we're down almost to the raw wood, and that's the case here, we may need to touch that up and just build up 2 or 3 coats of white. And see right back there, it looks like we've got a little bad spot in the white we can touch up. We have corners that don't come out crisp. We can touch those up right now. I mean, the problem is we don't live in an all-perfect world where everything is always the right temperature and the right humidity and the thumpers and whatever. There's always something, and you're always better off if you know how to work around potential problems, I think, anyway. And you're always better if you know how to touch up, because then no matter what happens to the model, even after you fly it, if you put a fingernail in it, there's always a way you can touch it up. Now it's always good each time I handle a part to kind of wipe it with M600 also, because I don't want to get fingerprints on it. Now what happens is the M600 is going to dry out my fingers here in the next couple of days to the point where the fingerprints will be a lot less obvious, but right now I really don't have that. Usually they get so dry they crack, in fact, so, but then they don't leave any fingerprints. Or I could wear, I got plenty of rubber gloves of course, but there's certain things that, and this is one of them, that I prefer to do. Just, I get a better feel this way. Now this part's got a couple little issues. We got a line here that's kind of rough, but what I'll do is I'll straighten it out with a fine ink pen when we get a coat of clear, and the same thing up here. Same thing over here where the tape bled through. You see how that's not even? Well, we'll address that with an ink pen. Hey, this is the last of the small parts. And then we're going to dig into that fuselage and try to get that. I don't know if it's going to work out, because it's pretty much time to feed the contractors. We got to get, I'm going to do this part and then get their coffee ready for them. They have croissants today. They're so sophisticated. Karen really has been taking good care of them, I have to admit. Takes good care of me too, so. But these touch-ups, anytime I've tried to skimp on doing this step and I get the model done, I look, and especially when I'm very critical of it under fluorescent lighting, and I say, I should have had a V8. Should have spent one extra day. In which I'm sure we've all gotten to that point now. Once we start putting clear on these and you see these colors pop. I'm just not sure because I put it up on my Vizio screen here, and the yellow doesn't look anywhere near as bright as it does in real life. So I'm wondering if, well, who knows. Now on these parts, now because this is going to be in the back of the fuselage, I want to make one thing sure, is when I butt the fuselage up here, now that all the tape is off, that I don't have a darker yellow, lighter yellow, or that it doesn't in some way match. And that has happened in the past. And the way I have to do that is, when I get the fuselage done, and I'm ready to put the first of the clear on, if I need to go, well actually I could do it before that, I want to get it out in the sunlight and look at it, because down here fluorescent lights show errors a lot better than incandescent lights, but they don't show colors well. See, that's why I think there's a variation in how this looks out in the sun and the brightness of the color and how it looks on the Vizio here. The camera's picking up the color, or the TV is not able to reproduce it. I don't know. But one of the great mysteries of life. But boy, we had so many repairs on this part. I'm just glad I got it the way it is now. Right up here you can see there's a little spot in the white. I want to make sure these lines, and I'll just brush them in. Right, all those parts are touched up. We're ready to do the big parts. And we got enough of a jump on this. You know, listen to that coffee brewing. Ooh, I love having that coffee down here. That smell is so nice too. But one of the things I was going to do was do the fuselage next. I decided not to because it's early enough in the day that I'm going to get it all done today. And so far we've had a good day. The phone hasn't been ringing off the hook, so I'm going to get the wing done next. I'll bring the coffee out to the contractors, get them fed. I noticed they work a lot better. Oh, what am I talking about? I work a lot better with a nice cup of Javalia coffee. In fact, I'll have a cup just to celebrate that we got this much done. Now I've noticed how much better I work. I always have to pre-taste the coffee before we give it to the contractors. Make sure it's up to full Javalia quality. I can't believe we give these guys Javalia coffee, but they love it. And Karen's got, of all things, croissants. I don't get croissants for breakfast. These guys are eating better than I eat. Well, they work harder too. No, I almost forgot. Here's the deal. I forgot all about this. See, I have to use, and I would suggest anybody that has air heat like we had an issue with the furnace. The guy suggested to me that we get these special 3M filters. They're high allergen, and they're a little more expensive. They're about 3 times the price, but in our case, I think that may be worth it for Karen's sake. And I've got one in there already. I bought 2 spares, but they're for high, I don't know what the word is, high allergen extra. See, the ones we had in there, they were, well, just the generic ones. These are supposed to be a lot better. No, and the furnace was running great today, so. Here's what's funny. See, they put this decal on your furnace. 24 hours a day, 365. You call them, they say, I'll be there next week. I don't know why they even put the decal up there. Check this out. These guys are getting croissants today. You believe that? Now I think what they're doing, they're going to put all the, he's going to point, if you know what pointing is. You put the concrete in, but yeah, that's what he's doing. And it is truly a nice warm day out there. I'm amazed. What a nice, you know, considering it snowed yesterday. They got most of the flattening done. I don't know when they're going to start. Again, if they're going to do helicopters today or what, I have no idea. Now this is probably, I'm starting on the bottom. I want to spend you know, a little bit of time on each letter, looking at each letter individually. So in my mind, when it comes time to do the touch-up on this, I won't miss any spots. Because what I'm going to have to do, of course, is touch up one side and then flip it over and touch up the other side. Or maybe I'll take lunch in between there, or whatever. Who knows what. The one thing we've had in the whole course of doing this job is flexibility. Changing the plan midstream. Staying flexible. Now, most important is on the wing, because I don't want to have... The wing is the most obvious spot where you'll see something that's not quite right. Especially the top of the wing, but even the bottom. I want it... I know I want everything. I just want everything in life. Like, I think there was a song like that. I could have written a song. Anyway, we will hammer away at this. There is no... At this point in time, there's no prisoners. There's no quest for mediocrity here. And I'll do one letter at a time. And then I'm probably going to want to, at some point in time, paint the inside of the fuselage with a brush where it's going to be black, because I'd want to cover that with clear so that the black is as far down in as possible. And I'll have to figure out exactly when I want to do that. But even doing one letter at a time, you just can never be too fussy. Now, the real problem here is, had I not put in that coat of clear over the letters, what would happen is all these little flakes of the silver would have been disappearing up into no man's land. And you can pretty much, I can feel a letter that isn't done. Oh man, it feels like very rough. You can even hear it. So this is just going to be a labor of love. The next, I don't know how long. They see I got a spot right there I got to touch up. No reason to make this any more redundant than it has to be. It's a one letter at a time deal, touching up each letter as we go. Because the last thing on this job, once this whole wing is done, the last thing is going to be the back mask. Well, I got to card the fuselage yet, but then the real issue at hand is, before it gets too late today, I want to airbrush in that canopy so that can be drying, and then that edge can be taken care of a couple days down the road too. I just love this color. It's every time Karen's down here too, she says, "Oh, it really is very bright." Okay, the last part we have to deal with. Listen to this coffee pot. It sounds like it's going to explode. I got to get the contractors some more coffee. Boy, are they working out there. They already delivered the pavers. Our whole front. I don't even want to go out there now. They're unloading pavers. We have, looks like the Berlin Wall in front of our house. We're going to scrape this down, touch it up, and then try to shoot the canopy today. Although it is clouding up out there, I may have to do it in the back room. Now, one of the things I really liked the way it came out was the way that cowl looks in the front. That was kind of an improvised thing, and I'm going to eventually, of course, paint everything in black here with a brush, but for right now I don't need to worry about that, because the clear will get sprayed over it. You won't notice that it's brushed, but all of these edges, everything's got to get carded down. We got our Barnes & Noble credit cards, gift cards worn down to a nub here. And they've worked well. Now I had two little problems. There's a spot on the wingtip that I'm probably going to have to spray over. It looks like a dry spot. I didn't want to get too cute there. I tried to touch it up with a brush, but looks like you can still see it. But what I'll try to do is at the end of the day touch that up. Because again, I'm trying to do as many of these touch-up things as I can as I go along, and to get any of the residue from the masking tape is another thing that I'd like to get off of here at the same time. And once I get that done, and since the canopy on this ship is such a focal point, I'll really want to take my time on that. I'm really not compromise it in any way at all.
Still thinking about those Richard Oliver cows. Can you imagine? We go to Jacobone's. I mean, we have the seagulls there and the geese, and you know, and it's those same geese that brought that airliner down. That's what we deal with in this area, when the proliferation of those geese. Just thinking about that right now as we're still about 2 months away from the flying season, the real flying season, anyway. And there's always little spots. I see one right there. Also, this M600 is taking off all the tape residue. One of the things, little by little, I can see some of it coming off from the blue tape. Of course, there's always a little bit that sticks out over the edge of the foil, that's for sure. Especially on the lettering. The lettering was the worst. Had that the goop. See, there's some goop back there from where two pieces of tape bleed one on top of the other. I got to be careful. I don't want to scuff up the canopy at all. Yeah, this was an unexpected little thing that I kind of liked the way it played into our paintwork. Every little touch-up spot that I can possibly get now. The sooner you can get the touch-ups done, the better, because then they get buried and clear. These are real little, but, well, like I said before, I see them. Even little ones like that. That is a spot right here I'm not happy with, and I want to mask this off, and I just want to brush that in, kind of blend it in. Want to see how crazy it is out here? It's raining, the sun is shining, and it's raining. I can't believe this. Raining on a sunny day here in Rutherford. And it's raining all over their cement work too. Not a good thing. I just got that. Whoa. Good catch, Wendy. I know you won't believe this, but I had the compressor set for blowing out the filters at 100 psi. See, that's what happens when you don't check your work. I know everybody's gonna laugh about that. You don't think I'm going to edit that out of the tape either. I was blowing the filters out with air the other day, and I had the thing set, and I was thinking, wow, that's a pretty powerful compressor. That is a little more like it. A good catch, definitely a good catch. So that's pretty cool. It's raining outside, it's pouring rain. Well, at least we got that painted, just a little touch up. Then even a little touch up like that, I want to have it done. And the sooner I do it, the sooner I can bury it and clear. Okay, the next thing we want to do is backmask the canopy area. That'll be pretty cut and dry. And then when I'm done, I'll be able to, actually, it's going to be a double benefit here. I want these sticky eyes to tape.
The benefit of this is going to be that then I can work the tape line that's up here at the same time. And since this is something that's really critical, I want this to really be as good as I can make it. I want this to be the focal point of the model, one of the focal points. I have to be super careful I don't get any overspray on this, because we've got all this work into the yellow, and any of the overspray that's going to come over here will definitely be a crimp in the style of the yellow. Also have to figure out how I can hold this and still keep it. I think I can do that. That probably work. I don't want any overspray on this canopy area. I'm trying to be real careful about how I back mask this so I don't have any extra tape touching anywhere I don't have to have it. Okay, we're ready to set up the airbrush, clean it out with acetone, and get the first coat on here. Now, if you notice, that's our train station. And how unusual was that? I bet they saw that from Frank's Pizza Nice, and look at this, unbelievable. We've seen this in a newspaper, but I've never seen it in color yet. Not like this. Wow.
It's the U.S. Airways plane.
Yeah, that's the one that went in the river, yeah. Now, you know what? This would have been a great backdrop. Maybe John Pothia can Photoshop us in like we're standing right here holding the Testarossa or something. You never put anything past John. He's got the ability to Photoshop us in anywhere. The Super Bowl. This, by the way, this would make a great background for a photo you really wanted to have a copy of. And I think, well, I'm going to ask John to do that at some point in time. Now, this is even better with the one in, you can see the sign Rutherford. Now, see, you can Photoshop me in right here, John. Just make me holding a Spitfire. Cut out the Walker fly-off picture and glue it right in there. That'd be pretty cool. Well, anyway, we enjoyed this, and we always enjoy sharing emails with people, but we got to get the airbrush going. It stopped raining out there. Did you see the rain before? It was raining and the sun was out. Okay, all we gotta do now is get ready, set up the base coat for the canopy, and then let that dry. Now we know we have our house decorated for Mardi Gras, but this is Ray and Tony, and they've got, this is a real Christmas tree.
It's a Mardi Gras tree.
A Mardi Gras, a Midgley tree. Look at the color, it's like peacock color. And Karen just was out shopping today and bought peacock feathers to decorate the house for, I don't know if we're getting, are we Cajuns yet?
No,
I don't know.
Not yet.
Anyway, I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, maybe I could make my canopy that color. I think that's pretty cool. We got the Mardi Gras decorations up there on the mirror. That's pretty neat. Mardi Gras forever. Purple canopies forever. Let's go spray that canopy. Now we have 4 colors to paint the canopy. We have the color and we have the base. The base has a little bit of pearl in it, but B25 silver is exactly the same. So first thing we're going to do is get on our base coat. And of course clean the airbrush. That's the part I love. Put about a half of a container of acetone through the airbrush, and then we'll do a little test and see how this is going to look. Oh, I thought we were going to beat the system. It stops raining. Now it's clouding up out there. I don't think we can risk that. Now, I can show this real close. If you look at this, 1 second here. Wait, let me hang up the airbrush because this thing drops on the floor all the time. This is relatively thick. Let me show this up close. You see how the base, I wanted this to cover well, but see how thick that is? So I'm going to have to thin that out a little bit, that's for sure. But just taking a look at that, how the airbrush is set, when you see that it looks like cobwebs and spider webs, you know the paint is really way too thick. So I'm going to thin this out before I even try to do anything with it. Now if I were spraying this with no thought in mind to how much weight I'd be adding. I could just spray it thick like that, but I'm going to dump some of this back into the original jar and then just put a tiny amount of thinner in there. I don't want to see that cobwebbing. And again, this is Brodak Candy Apple Blue. It's one of the nicer colors of the Candy Apple series. And I think we had this base set, maybe we were going over a darker color or something, but because we're going over white, I don't think we need it that thick. We'll find out right away. Let's get something to practice on. Now it takes a little while to use up the old material. Oh, that's going to cover fine. You can tell already that's going to cover fine. But now you can see, I don't want to, you can see where it ends, it kind of just fades out, and that's exactly what we want. And just as I get ready to go outside, the sun comes out and it's raining again. So obviously I'm going to have to paint in here, or it's snowing. It may be snow, it may be rain, I don't know. And it's a beautiful sunny day. It's an unbelievable day. Yeah, it's raining. Look at this. Now this is just our first base coat. Usually this takes several different base coat, black edging, silver edging, among others, but we'll see if it's our lucky day to stop raining. I'm not running a risk here. Now, it's still a little bit on the thick side, but I'm going to go with it. This is only the base coat. This has to dry, maybe 15 minutes before we put on the next coat. And we always try to leave the center line just as light as possible. Oh, God almighty. Well, you know what? I'm going to make it an easy decision now. The gun spit. Now I have to cover that up. I have no other choice now. Now, one of the ways to avoid that is get the gun spraying and then go over the part. In this case, I don't know. Yeah, we covered right up. Man, it's our lucky day. It is our lucky day. And that's going to have to dry.
I think they probably have about 2
Oh, I know how long it's going to take the heat to dry that up.
At least I hope so.
Okay, I didn't want to take any chances, and since it's raining and not raining and everything out there, I let it sit up by the heating vent for an hour. Now I can run my hand right over that. Now, to make that color, and you see how that color, the light reflects off the color? Well, to make that color, it's just a question of Brodak Candy Apple Blue. You can see how the light reflects off of that. And another thing, you can always shut the fluorescence off and see a little darker version of it. Now what we do is, the next time I spray this, I'm going to spray it with, it's just Candy Apple Blue. There's nothing else in it except one little spot, just a drop of B25 silver. So it continues having that speckly, flaky look. And I'm going to try to darken this here. Then the last color I'm going to put in is some Candy Apple Blue that has a little black in it to darken it up right around the edge. The idea when doing this is do it in 3 or 4 coats, and if you really want to be cute, you can just run B25 silver with just 1 drop of Candy Apple right down the middle. And I always like to look at the way that B25 silver, the specks look. See how it changes color? It comes into the sun, it almost looks like there's a light bulb on in there. The dark around the edge. We can just go from canopy to canopy here. But anyway, this is a, I've shown on video many times. It's actually 4 steps. And at the end, I think you have something real special. And just as an example, when you see how this sits the base coat, what I call the base coat, everything sinks down at the bottom. Now, I have this all set because I'm going to do this over and over again probably when Midgley's down here or somebody else. I always stir this up a little bit so I get all that B25 silver out of the bottom. And by the way, if you want to add B25 silver to this to make it sparkle even more, it's no problem at all. You just dip it down in. I got the big container here. Just dip it down and take a little amount up. It takes very little to get those sparkles in the paint. Now usually what's left in the jar is fine. I just can add the next coat to this, the next color. This is marked the base. Now, here's my blue, okay. Ugh! Boy, these things. This has very little, just ever so little in it. Now what I want to do is I want to just run this, go outside and spray a little bit of this. What I'm looking for is the edge of the airbrush so I can see if it's too thick. See, it spits? That's a problem with this gun. I'm going to have to be careful not. This gun is spitting. Of course, the way to make that better, just unscrew the tip, which I ought to do anyway. What's happening with painting relatively thick material. But it's always good with an airbrush to get the spray off of what you want. That's a nice wide pattern now. Now we're all set to spray the next step. And that'll be the second color of our 4-color process. And the thing that's always tempting to do with this material is just keep spraying and spraying and you build up a 1/4 of an inch of thickness if you're not careful. But the nice thing is, just like I had that spit that came out before, you can just basically go right over it. To make sure that's not spitting. I'm trying not to go up on the tape because I want that final edge to be a dark color. And if I put this material on, what's going to happen? It just builds up a thick paint edge. Now it's still got the three-dimensional look. Excuse me, still got the three-dimensional look. We're going to give this a little time to dry. Oh yeah, that's going to be nice. Oh, that's step 2 done, and we're just going to wait and just give that some time to dry. Now the next color that's going to go on there is the lighter of this. It's got a little more B25 silver in it than the base coat, and it's just to put a highlight right across the top. The only purpose of that is to just put a highlight right across the top. You almost could use straight B25 silver for that if you wanted to. But we have some already mixed up here that's got an awful lot of that. So let me just, I keep these all taped together because I don't want them just going into oblivion. It took me a lot of time to get these all mixed into, and I probably could do another 100 cockpits with them. But the mixing takes so long to get it just right. And this one has, with the highlight color, has a little bit of pearl in it too, as well as the B25 silver. See how it's disappearing into the paint? So we'll just... Now, if you weren't sure about doing this, the way you could do it is just get some candy apple blue from Brodak and some B25 silver and do a little experiment and paint some light bulbs, paint you know, something. And if you don't want to spend money buying pearl, just go buy pearl nail polish, let it decant, and stick a little toothpick in there and take out a little bit. The nail polish blends right in. And I want to make sure, because this is one of the highlight colors. See, I want to get all of the pigment off the bottom. Okay. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Now in between these coats I don't bother cleaning the gun, because if there's a little extra in there it won't matter. I just go out and spray some, or spray one of these. It stopped raining out there, of all things. Can you imagine? An end to the rain. Wow. Now this is a little thick. Let me just show this. Now this up here, and get that real close. See how it looks like spatter? Get close. That's spatter. That's too dry. So this is going to need, voila, a little bit of thinner. I think once you see one of these, you'd want to have, except of course if you're doing a canopy detail job. The neat thing about this is you can practice this. Light bulbs are a perfect thing. Fluorescent light bulbs. Anything that's, when you go down to Lowe's or Home Depot, they have sheets of linoleum that are 29 cents each, and they're white, and you can just paint them. Or you can do what I do, if you just have some tin cans laying around. Let's look at the spray pattern once we use up all that old paint. Now this should be the spray pattern that we're looking for. I'm doing it over white so you can see it. Much no spatter out at the end. Let's see, all this is going to do is highlight the top edge just ever so slightly. And the idea is to make it many tones where it's not all one color. See the motion? Well, I guess it would change if you had a different shaped canopy. That just highlights that top edge and gives it a little reflective quality. Now, once this is dry, we have to do around the edge. I have some already mixed, but it's Brodak Candy Apple Blue with a little bit of black in it, Brodak Black, and it just goes right around the bottom edge, and then we're going to let it dry, shoot a coat of clear on it, one coat of clear to blend everything in, and set it aside to dry overnight. Now it's the same thing, except the darker color has some black mixed with it. And it won't matter if there's a drop or two left in that gun. This tape on everything. Now, I wanted to show this as one of the tips. This is, oh, geez, B25 silver. You can see how it all stays up there. I just take an ordinary screwdriver, anything, dip it in, whatever sticks to the end of the screwdriver, that little amount, that's all you need. More than that, and you wind up making silver paint here. I'll do a little test. I just want this to have as much sparkle in that canopy area as possible. And this has to go around the edge, and then we're going to be good to go. That's going to be our dark edge. Now, the technique that I use, certainly not the only technique, but the technique is I start off of the part, leave the airbrush on, and then just work my way right up onto the part. Once it's as dark as I need, the last pass I pull a gun back just a little bit. See that both sides are even, that I've ended at the right specified producer. At the very end, I'm going right up on the edge because this is almost solid black, and that puts the highlight on it. Now also, if you're going to come up with some kind of custom canopy color, see how this changes? That's what I like about these colors. It has a real glassy look. Also, the ones that I thought were real good, the B25, the A26, all had great canopy detailing like this. Now, I'm just waiting for this to dry. It's going to get a coat of clear before we put it aside to dry overnight. Just one thin coat of clear, just to blend everything in. Now, because these colors, see what happens even after you've used B25 silver? There's always a little bit in the airbrush. So what I found is worthwhile doing is just ordinary acetone from Lowe's. And what I'll do is I'll take almost a full gun load of this, a full jar of it, and if you look at it close, it's already sprinkling. Now, when I'm done with this, I'll take the airbrush apart and soak it in acetone. First I want to spray it because I want to clean this out. Now there's a good reason for this. If for some reason I want to touch something up, say I want to touch up yellow with this or something, I don't want to have in the middle of the touch up, pew, out comes a bunch of this metallic stuff. The B25 silver has pearl and metallic in it. So the problem is it's so highly pigmented that it stays in every little crevice and corner of the tip and everywhere. So to make sure that that's not going to happen, and look, you can see in suspension just how much is already in there, just from shaking the tube up. Now, I want to make the tip go out, in, out, in, out, in. And now I'm just going to go outside and spray the rest of this outside so I don't have to breathe it in. Now even after this, there's always some of that little speckle stuff. I remember, Lou Dutke, a funny story. Lou was not big on cleaning guns as far as I remember. He was not really happy about painting planes. That wasn't part of it that he enjoyed. So what would happen is he'd get to the paint and had his airbrush or his little spray gun and I don't have to clean it that good. And he'd be painting along on the top of the leading edge, beautiful white, beautiful, and a speck of whatever the color before that was. And every time I'd see that, then you gotta sand it and you gotta touch it and redo the silver. And oh man, it's just way easier just to clean things. And this is the one time, anytime using any metallics or pearls, get everything clean. And it takes a little time, but we gotta wait before I put that clear on. I'm gonna give it better part of an hour anyway, because it's gonna sit overnight anyway. We're done for the day. I hear the contractors are loading up and they've got their bricks out there. They were pavers. The pavers came in today, and see, even after this, if you spray this, there's always, look at what comes out of it. There's always something that still comes out of it. Now I'll take the tip of this, clean it in my can of thinner and or acetone and or retarder. And once I put it back on, as soon as I see that blast, I know it's clean. Now I also take all four of my colors, I tape the jars just to I started off with 4 jars of candy apple blue, and I've gotten probably, if you count Midgley's planes and others that I've done, we've probably painted 10 canopies or so. We got plenty left over. I'm going to tape these up. I've got each one marked what it is, and we're just going to wait for that to dry and then shoot the clear, and we're done for the night. Now, everybody likes to have their little trademarks or their little things that, for some people, and there's nothing wrong with it, of course. They build an identical plane. They build one plane and one exactly like it, exactly, even painted the same and everything. And that works well for a lot of people. I do exactly the opposite. Every plane is a whole different entity. Everyone, almost everyone, is a prototype of some kind that... But I like to have within these prototypes certain things that I know identify these planes as they come from the windy Scuderia Ferrari. And the blue canopies, when I got the Brodak blue, I was just experimenting and trying different things. I used to paint the canopies green years ago. I had some candy apple green acrylic lacquer. Well, this works a lot better, a lot easier to do. And the thing is, you can use one thinner for the whole project. And once you have, even if you only do just one, if you just did just plain blue, that'd be fine too. But I think when you do these edges and fades and everything, and you practice a little bit, and I remember D. Rice had a lot of good luck with this. Midgley, of course, makes some beautiful canopies. Just to name anybody, it doesn't even matter. When you go to appearance judging and you see people that have got a canopy very similar to this, yeah, it's nice. I get a little bit of a compliment out of something like that. And let's see how long it's been since we're going to put that clear on, then we're packing it in. Believe it or not, This has been a long day. I thought this was going to be one of these cupcake days. Carding that stuff off, man. And in that drawer, there's touch-up. I even got touch-up paint for Kajeski's playing in there. Mike Kajeski's touch-up paint. Well, we got touch-up for everything. Always have a little extra paint. That's the key to this. Yep, years ago my trademark was green canopies, and I did a lot of them. Richard Oliver had some nice canopies. He's kind of followed through with this, doing a multi-fade canopy. Oh, we've done a lot of them. And I really like, one of the things I like about Rich Walbridge's Cardinal, I think he did a great job on the canopy. I think that really sets it apart. And my feeling for the color of a canopy, it should be a color that appears nowhere else on a model. In other words, if he used this color for blue for trim, then the canopy looks like trim. It should be a color that appears nowhere else on the model. And we have done a lot of canopies. That is for sure. Now the color gets a little bit brighter, just a little bit, when we put the clear on. And we only need just the slightest amount of clear. Again, and once I do a job like this with multi-fades, never put tape over it. Ever. Never, ever put tape over it. Period. And that is a lesson. When you pull the tape up, some of those little specks come up and it just ruins the effect. Now I was going to take a chance and shoot this outside. I'm not going to take a chance. It's clouding up again, looking and feeling like snow. Looking like snow. What a crazy day. But like the Marines always do, they improvise. And the final test, of course, is going to be how this looks out in the sun. And I just need enough. I don't want to get a lot up along the tape line either. This is just really a blend. That's certainly wet enough. It doesn't have to be any wetter than that. There's a lot of parts of this plane. I'm real happy with the way they came out. And basically this canopy now adds its little look to that list. Now, of course, it doesn't have the gloss that it'll have. You got plenty of that sparkle stuff going on in there. So we're done here for today. That goes up on the heating vent to dry. Now I'm thinking I may want to let it sit an extra day. I'll see how the day plays out tomorrow. But that tape line now has raw paint. I don't want to make, if I ruin that edge, and I know I have to touch up the white there, so maybe I should just let it dry as long as possible and work on the other parts. This is the pavers they delivered today. Just putting out the final touch on that. What a wind is it? Look at the garbage blowing all over the place over here. That's the kind of day it's been. Get the rest of the drainage going in soon. I love being a GC on a job like this. There goes Carol's. That is some tonnage there. That is some tonnage. Now I know in years to come, we'll look back at this video, we'll look back at this day, and remember it well. It was a great canopy painting day. It was a great day to be a paver. Well, again, I really have gained a new respect for hard work. Seeing this crew work, they are the best. Jose and his crew, they work through the snow, the rain, it doesn't matter at all. Doesn't even slow them down. Very impressive. There's just one more thing it reminds me of, and I think about it every day. All the time they've moved all these rocks. When George and I were down by the prison, and we had 80 loads of these rocks that went in our backyard to make the pond, around the pond, and all of this stuff. And boy, I'm gonna have to sooner or later dig out that old video and invite George over. maybe he won't want to see it either, but shouldn't laugh. That's some tonnage there too. Look what Karen bought this morning for the contractors. 2-bit brownies. That's for tonight? Okay, they got the crew that's going to drive. They're going to start laying pavers in there, it looks like. Starting to look like it. They got about 50 of these stacked in front of the house.
You know, when you didn't give me any way to cut.
This might be interesting.
What's that?
They're laying them all out already. I guess these guys know how to go right through this. I'm sure they do. When they're doing this, it's like us building a plane. We just go right through it. I think this is a little heavier work though.
Yeah, a little bit.
A little balsa wood? Brodak dope? Pavers. Ah! Okay, they're laying pavers. Step one here, we're going to finish up Steve's tank. Get that in the mail to him so he can get out there flying. Unfortunately, we're not flying. Rich Jacobone reported in this morning. He's going skiing for a week, so don't bother coming over. Well, Rich, forget about it. We're plenty busy here. And I got my list of stuff I want to go right down the list. And most of all, I want to get that black in a pipe tunnel today. We could start figuring out how we're going to do some inking. But we always have to work around the needs of the contractors. Well, Steve Harris's tank is ready to ship out. I took the time to do this because I just know that Steve is out there, well, he's flying and we're paving. And the guys are out there, and I've been having to run out there every 5 or 10 minutes to decide if I want pavers going left or pavers going right. And it's unbelievable how fast it's going. It's going at lightning speed. I can't believe it. With the heat on, and it's really cold out there, so that heat is definitely going to cook up our canopy edge a little bit better in the time. We got to make some more coffee for the contractors. They got a crew out there. You can't believe how they're working. This to me is amazing. Now, earlier this morning they were laying bricks out there. Look at this. It's not even lunchtime. It's actually coffee time, and they're already cranking along. They're working on a porch. Well, we're going to bring them out to coffee soon. The old Javalia's cooking away here, baby. And they got all kinds of muffins here. Oh my God, Karen made them. Karen's pretty good to us. You know, John, I'm thinking about it. Now, John Patia does all these Photoshop things. Man, I was thinking about that plane. If you could somehow Photoshop that in with something, I don't know. We're gonna find out. Anyway, not getting much done on my plane, but I'm getting a lot of loose ends taken care of, and I'm really enjoying seeing this come to fruition as I'm brewing their coffee, because you can see how fussy they are. See everything they're doing here. They're leveling it, evening it up. I'm real impressed, and I'm real happy we didn't go for the cheap Charlie job here. A couple of doors down, one of our neighbors went for one of these cheap jobs where they just throw some sand and drop stones. Within a year, it all warped up and twisted up, and what happens, the ice gets in between them and it breaks them up, and this part of the country, it's rough on stuff that you don't do right. And I see they had another load delivered out in the street. They not only covered our whole lawn up, they got the street covered up too. Now, I don't know, when I first met Karen, I had no idea what was in our future, and boy, we have had This year, more than ever, has been a great adventure. Absolutely great adventure. All right, we got the middle of an exciting day here and more excitement coming. I wanted to get that Steve Harris tank done. The next step on this, I'll carefully, very, very carefully pull all this tape off. Ooh, I'm really liking the way that, when that has the clear on it, this gets to be much brighter and deeper once you put the clear on. But that is I think that's such a nice way to do a canopy. It looks realistic as a painted on canopy can be, and to be honest, it saves about an ounce and a half of weight over having a normal plastic canopy. So if you're building a straight line stunner, that's always one of the good choices. And that really does pop out in the sun. I've seen it, even on a video, I can see that on many of the ships, as well as when you're looking at it in real life. All right, let me get this tape pulled up. Now, after I got all the tape off of this, and I really took my time taking it off, the only spot, and it would have been perfect, I wouldn't even have to touch it up, except what happened is I didn't spray the white far enough back. The white ended just before the end of this, and then I kept moving this back, if I remember right. But I just retaped it and then brushed in the white. I'm going to let that sit for an hour or so while we do some other stuff. We have some other shop work to work on. But just right here, if I didn't make that little mistake, this would have been a no-hitter. So much for the windy no-hitters here. And we've got to be, this is turning out to be an unbelievable day. Those pavers are going in so fast. In my wildest dream, I never imagined they'd go in that fast after all this work. So, all right, now once that dries, I'm going to start looking at my priority list here. I need to paint the pipe tunnel black. I can do the wing part while this is drying, so maybe that's what I'll do, is I'll hang this up by the heating vent and then start on the wing and get that blackout done, because I want that when the plane is inverted. I don't want to see yellow black gobbledygook in the pipe tunnel, even though you're not going to see much of it. You know who's going to see it? I'm going to see it. Now, the other day, I forgot to mention, not funny, but I took my motorcycle helmet and brought it in. I had covered it up with a piece of plastic, like a plastic bag, and because the contractors are opening the door in there, who the hell knows what they're doing in there, or the mouse got underneath, the cover came off, and I could write my name in the helmet. And the problem is, once you scratch up that face shield, it's like having a scratch on your eyeglasses. So I'm not so sure that of course the motorcycle's under a cover, I'm not so sure we're going to have an all-day cleanup of that. I don't even want to go out there right now. They've got, I think, 12 guys I counted, and boy, they really know what they're doing. They're working like a well-oiled machine. I think they're going to have the pavers pretty much laid down by this afternoon. Incredible. You know, while that canopy's drying, I'm going to take a brush and some black Brodak dope and very carefully, see, the reason I can't spray it is when you spray, you can't get up underneath you. And no matter how you mask this off, it isn't going to matter, because the clear that's going to go on top of this is going to get rid of the brush marks anyway. But it's going to be something that I want to have the look of, because I wasn't sure if this was black on the bottom, it'd be easy to just spray in there. But I would then need to get an edge. Instead of that, I'll get the edge under here where you can't see it, and it'll be a much better coat of paint as far as sealing it up and things like that. Now, Karen had a really wonderful idea last night that I was thinking about, and I thought, yeah, that's pretty cool. Now, over the years, Warren Walker, among other people, who built a Red Baron, found a piece. Well, he didn't find it. It's out by him. The remains of the Red Baron are out by in Chino, where he lives. And what he did that I thought was just really cool, he got them to give him a little piece of the crash, and he made like a little washer that he put out in a tip weight box from the real Red Baron. And what I thought was pretty cool about that, I mean, you know, this is all in the eye of the beholder, but I thought that was just pretty special. So, what Karen had an idea, last night she was working on a computer with me, and she said, you know, you have all these feathers that were from Chicky that are, you know, we've saved. Every time I find a feather, and I find them under things, and
in heating vents and everything, because he, of course, was a bird who molted twice a year, or three, I think more than that. And what happened is, I have a lot of little feathers, and she said, why don't you take one of the little feathers and just permanently glue it in a tip weight box? Just make it a permanent part of the tip weight box, so there'll actually physically be a piece of him. Every time we do a square 8, he'll kind of be with us. And I thought, wow, is that ever a cool idea? And I think it's probably almost as cool as the idea of Warren Walker, that he had that idea. So I'm always looking for little things like, to me, this plane, the reason I've been so crazy about it, and maybe crazier than I had to be, is because I'm trying to, like I have all these pictures of Chicky around the shop. I'm thinking every time I look at this plane or fly it, I'll kind of have a little memory of him. Every time I change the tip weight, I'll see that feather, and I think I'm definitely going to do that. That's going to be one of the things I do, that just as a little tribute. A tribute, what a great idea. Anyway, I'm going to just pretty much have to tough this out. I want to get one coat of black in the whole pipe tunnel here and up under the sides and everything. And even though there's brush marks, once that's sprayed, a couple of coats of clear, and we shoot clear up in there and everywhere, I think that'll be no problem at all. That'll definitely disappear. Now, by the time I finish this, I hope it's time to do the fuselage and I can pull that tape off, because it's sitting up by the heating vent there. And we're in the middle of a day that it's pretty hectic outside. I hear things banging around and helicopters going and pavers flying, and like every other day, just can't be crazier. All right, that went off well. Now, I have to do the same thing on the fuselage. First, I got to see if, and because the heat's been on constantly, the heat never shuts off here. I'll take that little repair, make sure that's okay, and then we'll pull a handle, get into the nose and the tail section here and get that blacked out. And then I want to lay it together and see what this pipe tunnel is going to look like all in one piece. All right. Now we don't dare card any of that. See, there's a little edge on there. We won't card that until tomorrow. In fact, there's a little spot up here. Once it dries, it'll card right off. But if you try to card it when it's wet, you just make a mess out of it. Always, if you're going to card things, even if you can let it go. See, if you take the tape off and you don't card it, which was what we did before, I think we let it dry even 2 days, 1 or 2 days, do something else. Because the paint gets harder and harder, and then when you shave it, it cards right off a lot easier. And I'm thinking, the more I see this, and the more I see, I know, see, it doesn't have the real look it's going to have once the clear is on. Once the clear is on, that's going to be like you shined a spotlight on it. And that's true of any of the Brodak candy apple colors. Now I got the same thing here. I have an edge that I just didn't catch just right when it carded. Then I'm just going to the same thing. That's why I keep the touch-up bottles, just keep them close at hand, and as I'm going along, it never ends. I'll find little things that I'm not crazy about and then just go touch them up. And in the final, once the clear starts going on and that stuff gets buried in clear, then I could do something like this. I could just run an ink pen on it if I found something like that. And that's a nice advantage of having black trim. The edges, anytime they're a little bit crooked, you just run an ink pen on them. And sometimes it just takes one little drop in a corner to make an edge really perfect. And your eye, it's like that imaginary thing. Your eye catches that right away. You cannot fool your eye. Your eye knows that that's there. It doesn't know what it is right away, but it sees it and it says, something's not perfect. And that'll dry while we're painting inside. I got to pull a handle out. I think I got to pull a handle out. Maybe not. Yeah, I got to pull a handle out because I got to get in there. But then as soon as this is dry, I'll put the handle right back. I always want the handle in place
whenever the wing is not in place. I'll try to get in that as much as I can, so that when you look in there and see that the header and the whatever venting and everything's going in there, it'll be black. And then I'll put it all together and see if I like the look while it's all together, because it'll actually look, it'll be like an accent stripe of black down the middle of the fuselage. It may not look too bad. Another reason I had to take that out, because I need to get in from both angles. Alright, that's pretty much ready to set up by the heating vent to dry. The wing, see, as the wing comes right at you, you don't see any of the yellow, which is what one of my objectives was here in laying out this paintwork. And my other objective was to make the body look more slender. This is really a wide body with a lot of side area in the back. But of course, time will tell if we've accomplished, what we want with this. Time will tell. Well, everything's drying up as per plan. And there is action going on outside like I've never seen. They had 13 guys here today. They got even extra guys, more than what they have on a normal crew of 9. Oh, the guy next door, this pool is frozen solid. Today it's cold. It's below 20 degrees out there, and I chopped this ice this morning. You can see how it encroaches right in a matter of, well, it's like around 1 o'clock right now. Look how much they got done in one day. Not even a day and a half a day. Incredible. They had this big machine out there that's cutting the block, gas powered. Just totally rips the blocks apart, almost like you're cutting wood. I'm sure it's a diamond blade. Now, it's really funny, when Jose and Bill were in here before, they were looking at the little painting I was doing, and they have seen the last month or so of this plane when it was silver and wood, and he's looking at that paint. I said, hey, from your point of view, do you like that color? Oh, yeah. They love the tribute. Look at how much they get. This is incredible. Incredible. Now, the next step on this, according to Jose, is they're going to put sand in between, and then they repound them down. I'm going to have to get out there and chop ice again. See, that when it's this cold, and it is brutal out there, they're on their 3rd pot of coffee already. Brutal work. This is Karen's latest addition to our hot tub area. Look at that. Oh my God, she's got peacock feathers. She's always wanted me to make a peacock plane. I'm not sure what that's all about. There's where poor Karen, she sits in that hot tub every night because of her back from falling down. It's amazing, amazing work to me. Amazing stuff. They do it all with a chalk line. Lay it all out. This saw is the amazing thing, watching that thing go. When they cut, or they had to move the saw, when they cut with that, it just cuts a brick just like it's nothing. There's the key to making this job go. Javal your coffee. What you don't see in the video is how cold it is out there. It is cold. Oof. There's some stuff about this job that's amazing, and every day it gets more amazing. I try to look at it from several different angles. Because from this point on, that won't change. That pipe tunnel will always be, it'll be easier to touch up to if it's black. And it adds a nice element of fuel proofing it too.
Amazing. Every time I hear that saw going, they cut a brick right in half like it's a piece of balsa wood. All right, next thing is to put the handle in. Get that all, I don't like to leave that apart even 1 minute longer than it has to be. And that was one of the first lessons I learned making this take apart thing, is keep that handle in place. It's, especially during time the dope is shrinking and moving, and just gives us a good way to handle it. And I often wonder, if you didn't have that handle, how would you even hold this when you put the clear on? And I've been trying to update my list regularly because I don't want to leave out any steps. The decals should be here tomorrow, or at latest 2 days. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up to do all my inking. Now usually this is not as small of a job as you think it is. Since we're coming up on the end of the day here, what I want to do is first I want to see how many pens I have that still write, get them writing, get everything ready, and maybe even lay out some of the ink work. But this is a big step. Now for people that properly clean their pens every year, this is not a big step. But for Wendy, this is an ordeal. And it's an ordeal every year. So before I do that, let me just get the handle in place, and we can figure out if any of these pens are going to be worth keeping. You know, I believe in, this is something, I guess it's some kind of overkill or something. I always, for sure, always get Karen's opinion of how the colors look. And in this case, she has some of the girls over right now. They're up there doing something. Who knows when women get together what they do. But I asked them all, I brought the fuselage upstairs, and I said, take a look at it, and don't make fun of me, but how do you like it? And I think they were humoring me. They said they liked it. So well, let me go get out my ink pens, and on that positive note, see if I can get an ink pen to write before the day's over. Now, the rules of engagement on inking a plane, I call it the rules of engagement. I keep a big poster-sized picture of this plane in my shop at all times. The reason is I want to show you what an ink job shouldn't look like. And I want to look at this real close. Now, this was in my earlier days when I was less creative and more prone to invent things as I went along. Now, you look at this ink work. There's nothing on earth on an airplane that looks like that ink work. And I keep that picture. It's one of the things, because I like to reference when you get ink wrong, the rules of engagement, when you get it wrong, it really ruins a plane. And I think that was just a good example of ink that didn't make sense, rivets that didn't belong anywhere, boxes, post offices, toilets, planters. I'm not sure what I was thinking. And I've never been, even in this day, never been satisfied that was going to look good or some way, or that it added anything to the model. And I just thought to myself, oh my God, what now, years later, I think, what was I thinking? Now, years later, I kind of refined my technique to the point that, and a very strange thing dawned on me. It was like somebody turned the lights on in the room. Look at the fuselage side here. Look at how. I realized there's no part of an airplane that has those ink lines. And I mean, this is going back a lot. This is going back 25, 24 years here. But you know what? There's no part of a plane that looks like that. It just doesn't happen. So it took me a long time to realize what I was doing wrong. And I'm just going to do a quick little dissertation on how it can go wrong. It goes wrong in a hurry, too. And all that work is for nothing. I think it's true, as time went by, a couple of rules, the rules of engagement, I started thinking, what does a real airplane look like? What would panel lines on a real plane look like? Where would there be a gas cap? And I think the modern planes come a long way. But the problem is, none of this happened quickly or overnight. It took me so long to figure out that it's so easy to overdo ink. And if you're in doubt, less is better than more. And if you're in doubt, put one or two really straight, crisp lines on, not a bunch of gobbledygook. And here's the king of gobbledygook right here. You have done some bad ink work in your time. You know what? On your judgment day, God is going to say, boy, Ertnowski, what were you thinking? What was I thinking back then? Who did I think I was? Petey, Paul, and Mary here with that beard? See, Karen cleaned me all up. There's none of that anymore. No, 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 no. Nice, clean guy. Good guy. Not bad guy. Good guy. Oh, hate to look at these old pictures.
Now on the later model planes, I tried to do rivet lines, ink lines, that somehow represented or came close to being what was on a real plane. I mean, heaven forbid we should make this look realistic. And the trouble is, if you do a similar thing, now no matter what plane, in this case we're not building a semi-scale plane, but if the ink were semi what a real plane would be, well, it would be a lot better then. In fact, here we had multiple shades of rivets. You know, just as an idea, that it doesn't have to be scale, but it could be somewhat something similar, and I think then it adds something to the plane rather than just make it look like gobbledygook.
And of course, as time has gone on, we've not only, the last maybe 4 or 5 models, the twins, we've not only done ink work, but we've done shading to accent the ink work. But it's always based upon what does a real full size, and for our purposes, we pretty much use a typical World War II warbird, because that's kind of generic to what we want to do. But it's not difficult to figure out, and I want a quick storyboard just to get what I found to be things that have made, I think, my ink work. In fact, Charlie Reeves, who did the appearance judging, well, for the last couple of years, he actually commented that he liked, they were asking what should we do to get more appearance points, and his answer was make your ink work like Ertnowski's, and I'm not sure that's exactly what he meant, but the combination of just getting something semi-realistic is a big step in the right direction. Let me explain.
Now let's, for our purposes, we'll just use any typical plane. Doesn't matter what. A generic stunter. And what you can do, first thing is I want to do, and what I think would ruin a plane, how you could go about ruining it. The way you ruin it is you go down and you buy the templates with the green outlines on them, and you start, which I just showed my planes, you start doing this and you start putting, they always have one that's a toilet and one that's a couch, and they always have this, and by the time you're done it looks like the plane has leprosy. Well, this is something I learned right away. This is a good way to ruin a plane, and the reason I know is I've ruined a lot of them. Now here's my thing, is you can always go to a library, or you can go buy a book, any plane, in this case I'm just using this as an example, and get some idea of where the parts attach. In other words, what would make a panel line realistic is 2 skins would come together. They'd either be joined flush riveted or joined in some way. Some panels that come off have Zeus fasteners. They look like big wood screws that snap off, and as an example, the cowling parts come off. But the first thing is, and I would highly recommend, if you're not really familiar with how a real plane comes apart. Now, the only reason I'm familiar is I owned a plane for 15 years that I had to do a lot of work on, and always be taking the access panels on and off and take the cowling off. I knew where the firewall was, where the nose wheel attachment was. Because of owning a real plane, it was familiar. But for some people, may not be that familiar. But you can always get from a book, a magazine, a library, or just pick up something that shows what the real panel lines look like. In this case, this is where the wing spar is in a Tiger Cat. This is the rear spar. These are some of the access panels and hatches. The flaps usually have lines going across them. They'll usually be, or on most planes, a trim tab of some kind. The wingtip is usually made in more than one piece. And I mean, just as an example, that would give you a big head start to lay out your potential ink job. And what we did when we did the twin engine planes, we got pretty detailed drawings. We got a lot from Charlie Reeves that showed us everywhere where hatches are, and where, for instance, I know that hatch is really there. It's really there on a Tiger Cat too. And I know these lines don't go straight back, they go off on an angle. So I was able to replicate that as a semi-scale plane. But if you're not doing a semi-scale plane, it's still good to know that's what it looks like. And then it's that thing you do to trick your eye. Your eye doesn't know it's wrong. It doesn't know why it's wrong. It just looks and it says, well, that can't be. There can't be a gas filler cap out here, or as Billy Warwood used to say, there can't be a no step on the bottom of a flap. Now, I also like to look at, and I'm kind of a World War II prop guy, not a jet guy, but if you were doing an F-16, and I've made an F-16, I'd want to look at a picture of an F-16. But I think what's nice about World War II planes is they're very similar in construction. There's almost always a firewall here. There's almost always a line here and one at the bottom where these panels come off. There's almost always a very standard construction. There's formers and they rivet or in some way attached to skins. That's very predictable. There's almost always ribs in the wing that run front to back. They would never, in the case of my air coupe, they were geodetic, but most World War II planes do go straight back. And it's very, very easy. Just get a picture of a real plane and mimic it. Try to do a little mimic job of it. Now here's just a point I wanted to make. Even if you were going to do a very simple ink job and just replicate these lines and maybe where the gear would go up, I think you're 1,000 times ahead of the guy that puts flower pots all over the plane, or lines. And personal choice, yes. And it's the same as when you put the little letter sets. If you're not sure how many to put on, put a few less than a few more. Always err on the side of being conservative. And just as an example, a Hurricane is made of wood, so the stringers run front to back. Well, that may be something that's appropriate on a stunt ship. I don't know, but here you have exactly a replication of, again, firewall in front of the wing that the engine bolts to, basic formers, and in this case the stringers, and even in case of doing a wing, very simple outline of the wing. This would be very easy to measure off and get it right or make patterns. But always, if in doubt, less is better than more. And then there's the final test. Take some pictures or get some video of models that you really, really think you're in love with. In this case, I love Frank's Martin Baker. This is the old one, and I got to fly this plane, in fact. But here's, I think, everything he did here is tastefully scale. It's not exactly scale. It's not a scale model. But he's done a good job of replicating things so your eye is tricked into thinking, yes, that's exactly how it should be. And Frank, Al Raby, among others that are just real good at creating the illusion. And I've tried to copy them and tried to use them as a guide and then further it on my own into the scale models, the B-25, A-26, Typhoon, etc. But it's a good idea to start by looking at what does a real plane have in terms of panel lines are actually where pieces of aluminum, sheets of aluminum typically come together. And knowing that the Zeus fasteners are always around here, and down here, almost always. You'd almost never have Zeus fasteners on the rudder unless there was an access hatch. But again, and these are just general rules. They don't include every possibility, but having something to mimic is way better than just inventing it as you go along. Now, I just thought as a last resort, if everything else failed and you weren't sure what would be appropriate for ink lines, I'd pretty much just make one little sketch here of, like, you want to do ink lines 101. These are the ink lines that would always be on a real plane. You'd have a line here and probably a line pretty much on the center and pretty much one like this. So if all else failed, you could just, those three lines would make it pretty scale looking. If you really wanted to get cute, you could put simulated rivets, or that would simulate Zeus fasteners. That would make it really pretty prototypical. Usually what would happen is somewhere back here they'd be, I'm going to put a canopy, there'd be a couple of formers, and you could minimize them just exactly what they would be on a full-size plane. I mean, if all else failed, that would do it. Then if you wanted to add a couple of hatches, there might be a hatch back here for checking the controls. There might be a hatch or two up here. And on your rudder, or the elevators or flaps. Now, that would be a minimum thing, but it would be, because it's prototypical or close, I think that would add something to the model. That would be an upgrade, and if you did even less, if you just did a few lines. But I know if you were to do this, because I've done it, and you start doing this, and then you start doing this, and put a circle here and something here, and it goes wrong right away. And I always say, if in doubt, my golden rule, less is better than more. Now, there's one other thing, and I learned this doing the bombers. Just make this real simple, and we're going to see if we can get these pens to write. Now, there's different thicknesses of line. So if you have, and I would just guess, a number 80 pen, these are thick lines. Or you can take a thin pen and just go over them twice. These would be relatively thick lines, again, because they would have some kind of Zeus fasteners. Maybe, maybe not. Then you'd have a medium-sized line, a line that's a little less thick, because these typically are joints that are just, they're flush riveted. And then you might have, and I've had 3 pen thicknesses. You have a real thin pen for doing tiny rivets and hatch out lines. So what happens now is you've tricked your eye. Your eye is looking at this, and it sees things in focus. It sees the thicker lines, but these are out of focus. It kind of can't focus everything in at the same time. And when it does that, what's nice about it is if you've been able to do that, you've created an illusion that it's, but your eye doesn't know why it looks so realistic. It just does. And on a Spitfire, we have even different size rivets, different thicknesses of lines. These are real thin. Or if you have only one pen, you can space the rivets at different thicknesses. Again, the more variation you can put into it, these are thick lines, these are thin lines. You can vary things in such a way that it tricks your eye into thinking, and the shading, of course, on a scale plane just makes it jump off the page. And I think these are some of the things that over the years have just evolved to the point now where I really think the ink work that I do adds a dimension to the plane rather than just making it look like everybody else's plane, like it came off a drafting template. I don't even like to use a drafting template at all, because then I would see some hatch thing that's on somebody else's plane, and I want mine to be original as much as possible. And in the case of making things like this, you can just make your own templates out of 64th plywood very easily, and you know what? Then you know nobody's going to have that on the plane. And that's the Zeus fasteners around the nose. That, to me, if you're going to put the effort in to make a model that you really are paying the price, and you're going to make it as good as you can, you may as well make it as realistic as you can at the same time. Now, before I get too involved in the ink pens, we have to go out there and make some decisions on where we're going to have our boundary wall. Karen and I need to make a decision.
She also said it was gorgeous.
Yeah, when you want to go across the street to her job and see what the guy did. I think the guy cheated her a little bit. Yeah. Not exactly like this.
Yeah, you go, you know.
No,
How hard was it? Many steps.
You know, it's amazing how you veneered over that porch, that old porch, right over it, without taking the old porch down. I'm amazed.
That's what we're going to say to the building inspector. You just added something to the
Yeah, don't tell him nothing. Whoa, look at that saw guy. I love that saw. Anybody ever cut their finger off with that saw? Yeah. Oh yeah, I bet. Yeah, I'm sure they did. This is nice how around the pond they did this. Very nice. Oh, that's nice over here by the garden. Look how the walkway is going to go around back here.
That's some piece of equipment there, baby. Whoa!
Well, as you can imagine, Karen's in her element. She is really happy the way this is coming out. And these guys deserve all the credit in the world. They are some crew. Oh, when you come inside from being out with the contractors, I got to do a couple more little walks around for the touch-up paint. I got to get my pens out and see if I've got even one that writes, and most of all, I need to have some Dravalia coffee to warm up. I've pretty much kept that heater right by my bench the whole time, and we use it all the time now. And one of the things I dread every year is I call it pen day. I have to go through all my pens, and even though you can see I've taken meticulous care of them. I really should be put to death for the way I take care of these pens. I don't know why. What had happened in the past, I bought several sets of these. They used to be on sale for $75 or something. I'd go buy a set even though I didn't need them. And I'd say, I'll never use them. Why bother cleaning them? I got 100 extra ones, and one by one, they all got terrible. Then Bob Martens, our good friend Bob Martens, he took them all. I sent him out a $10 box of pens, shipped all these pens, he cleaned them all in some kind of professional cleaner. I got them back, they work great. Next year, same thing. So I need to go through, and this is going to be time consuming. We're not going to put a lot of this on a tape. The first thing I need to do is find my ink, and I always mark my ink, what year I used it, which ink worked the best. I'm going to kind of put some of this on the next tape because I'm going to have to do a dissertation about, here's the good pens, here's all my custom templates that I made up over the years. But the point is I have to go through all of this, and I have to, at the end of it, this is, of all the things I dread in building a model, this is one of the things I dread, is getting these pens to write. Now, over the years, of course, I've made it easier. I've found a lot of tricks, and we're going to put all of these, I'm going to put as many of these as I can on the next DVD. But I know I have to go through this. It's the end of the day. I need to go through, figure out if I'd really like to get 3 pens that write, if all else goes right. But it's going to be like pulling teeth out of a rattlesnake with your bare hands to get these to write. Of course, I could cheat. I could go up to Pearl Paint tonight and just buy 3 new pens. But you know what? I'm going to tough it out. I'm going to make these old things right, or it kills me. All of that'll be on the next DVD because we're at the end of this right now. Now, in the last few days, we really have made some real genuine progress. It seems like it wasn't that many days ago, and we were struggling with masking tape and tinfoil. That's all behind us now. And from this point on, except for these pens, this gets to be the best time of building a model. It's like putting the switch plates in when you're done sheetrocking a room. Now I've got everything drying up by heating vents tonight. The more I look at this color, and it's not the yellow. You see, it's not that orangey yellow. It's got a little different hue to it. It's just enough different that I think it's really going to stand out in a crowd. I'm real happy the way the Canopy came out. The backyard job is coming out as good as we could ever expect, maybe even a little bit better. Things we're trying to put the final touches on is getting Joe Adamusco up here with his Spitfire to do a trim day, a bench trimming day, and if we do, of course, we'll get as much footage as we can of Joe's new plane on the video. We're going to try to grind up some more tank parts, try to get these all set, because what's going to happen, spring is going to come on us all of a sudden. And I know from my experience, it happens real fast. And boy, if we even get one break in the weather, we're going to run out. Well, Jacobone's skiing for the whole next week, but we're going to run out, even if I go out with the stooge, Try to get some time on this new Jetfire motor that we're testing. Now, even though our buddy Chicky isn't with us anymore, every time I clean up the shop and I find a feather, I've saved all, even these little feathers, and one of those is going to wind up in a tip weight box. Chick, there'll be a part of you in this plane. Well, we're at the end of this tape, and again, I may have a minute or two here at the end to, not sure. I got to look at the time clock. Give you a little example of why we love Chicky so much and how much fun he was to have in the years we had him, and why we're doing this plane that really is a tribute to Chicky. Here's a couple outtakes you might enjoy. I did this epoxy or something if it would hurt him. Cage time. Hey. Look at what a good boy. Cage time. Come on. Look back and forth. Come on. Oh, Peepster. Peepster, where are you? Come on. Oh, man alive. Peeps, you're going in the cage. Show everybody what a good bird you are. Look, goes right back in his cage. Good bird. Steals all the Q-tips. Eats everything. Hey! Oh, you done taking a bath now? Look. Karen, look, he's... Oh, this bird. First he eat... Look! Ah! He's eating PVA. Now he's getting water all over my molds. Oh, man. Peeps, you're terrible.
Oh my God, it's a frog. Oh, is this cute?
Oh. He's taking a bath. What a bird. What a bird.
Put safety glasses
So
on,
is... Well, you got glasses. His name is Eye Biter.
and then we can call them Blunt Beak.
Blood. I told him if you come down here someday and he's quacking, you'll know I got him with the Dremel tool. You could be a duck next week. You could be a duck just in time for Easter, too.
Either
Dremel
that
that beak of yours.
A duck-billed...
You go to live with Walt Russell in Oregon where it's cold and it rains all the time. And you never can get to go flying. All you do is sit home and watch the raindrops. Poor baby. You got that mixed already?
Yeah.
Oh, the bigger of the sets of wheels. The center of the prop thrust line is actually the center of the motor mount pad. Now right there, that would be a 13-inch prop. But I'm going to have to work on this project alone, but as you can see, supervision has come in. And I have my whole bag of tubing with all various... I've heard there's a little kleptomaniac over here. He can't decide whether he wants a tube of... Oh, he wants a Band-Aid. Look at this. Look at this. This is what I have to live with. He's got a Band-Aid now. Now, I have these Band-Aids because every once in a while I run a razor blade into my finger or something, and you know what? The other day I looked for a Band-Aid. I didn't have any. They're all in his cage. He eats them. It is... What are you doing down there? Look at where he is. What are you doing? Hey! Hey! Get away from that belt buckle. Sanding, you can pick up a spot that was one of the spots where the gel coat wasn't perfect. And you don't see these spots until you sand them. And once you sand them, you can see a little spot coming right up. But it's very important, a composite part, usually if it's made in a mold with silicone or wax release agent, you've got to deal with those little pinholes and getting that primer, you got to force it on somehow. And there's a lot of different ways. I'm just trying to show the way that's worked fairly well on our composite fuselages. The tissue method works really well. This primer method, just because this is a smaller part, it's just more appropriate. But you can see how quickly those little spots come right up. Instead of making a plain black, yellow, and what is with my belt buckle? Look at this bird. He loves this belt buckle. What, he's biting me. Make a plain black and yellow, and you'll win the Concourse Award. Forget it, Chicky. Just totally forget it. We have somebody else who has the controlling vote here. Chicky, what do you think? Chair or B25? Chair, B25.
He votes for mommy.
Chair. I see this vote.
He votes for mommy.
The-
Chair.
Oh, Chicky.
You lose.
Just wait, Chicky. You're toast,
You
baby.
lose.
What are you giving him? Roast beef?
Barbecue beef.
Ready to work on your chair?
Yeah.
Fine, go to work on your chair. I got some roast beef here. Who needs Brodak dope when you have roast beef? That's it. Hold it with your foot and then
so
tear away
good.
at it. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. That mommy's some good cook, huh? She's got some in each foot now.
Wendy, where's the fabric?
It's on the floor.
Where?
Possibly complete without giving Chicky his breakfast. Chicky, it's time to go to work. We have no time to play with Baltimore Orioles right now. See, he doesn't understand English, so he doesn't understand. Chicky. Chicky, can you answer the phone? Can you do anything? Can you wash my car? Look at this. Hey. Hey. This bird. Chicky, I'm shooting video. I'm trying to help people enjoy the world of model planes, not birds. Maybe he understands and he's just laughing at me. I don't know. I'm gonna go to work. Pack the mold. Look at birds attacking him. He's packed the mold, 2 layers, and a piece of what amounts to be just saran wrap. Oh, you see he hurt his foot. He's got a bad toenail. Looks like he pinched a toenail or something on that foot. He's not feeling good today. Usually when he's feeling good, he's on our case all day. Chickadoodly, but he likes having all this company. All this activity in his house. Chicky, you got some life. I don't know what to say. He's not in a good mood today. He's just not in a good mood. And that would bring us into the range of the lightest wings I've ever made. That would just make it just won't be any better than that. And Dave's got a real nice little technique he's going to use on a tip. We'll put that on a video. But we want to get this glued up. Let's get it glued up, baby.
All right.
And you said you could look in the end and see where the light is coming out?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So actually, to the people watching the video, this is the first out of the aluminum mold, the first one we're going to join and actually have a wing that's going to be a functional plane by next season. Or at some, knowing Dave, maybe 2 seasons from now. Maybe 3 seasons.
Maybe 3.
You never know, but we're not in a rush. It's not a race. This is Chicky's story. And I hope you enjoy it, and I hope you enjoy sharing it with your children and grandchildren. Chicky was a wild bird who lived 5.5 years in Wendy's shop and interacted with all the people around us. In a way, he was part of all our lives, maybe even a part of your life. I took all the footage I had over a 5.5 year period, all little clips. I hope this makes an entertaining little tribute to his, we call him his lordship, Lord Baltimore. And we made this video for our grandchildren yet unborn, maybe for your grandchildren. And so we could play it in the shop over and over again and bring back some of the great memories he gave us over the years. This workshop that I work in and where most of these clips are taken from started out being Wendy's workshop, but from the year 2000 to 2005 it truly was Chicky's workshop. And I hope you enjoy sharing these little memories with us. And I think the best part of having this video, to me it's priceless, is that as long as I have this video, as long as I can play it back, I don't think I'll ever really forget them anyway. But it gives me comfort and helps me remember a very special time in my life. And this is the real footage, actually shot in Wendy's shop. I really do hope you enjoy it.